I'd like to call the meeting of the City Council of March 14th, 2022 to order. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Banks,
Present.
Brightwell,
Here.
Cruz.
Present.
We have an excused absent for Frazier, an excused absence for Hoskins, Mandelbaum,
Present.
and we have an excused absence for Taylor. President Pro Tem, we have a quorum.
All right, will all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a couple housekeeping notes before we get into communications. Under presentations, we are adding a legislative presentation by Senator Jeremy Moss, and we are also removing from our agenda items F and G, as well as the closed session. The Southfield City Council has established the following rules of procedure for all speakers. No speaker may make personal or impertinent attacks upon any officer, employee, or city council member or other elected official that is unrelated to the matter in which the officer, employee, or city council member or other elected official performs his or her duties. No person shall use abusive or threatening language towards any individual when addressing the city council. Any person who violates this section shall be directed by the presiding officer to be orderly and silent. If a person addressing the council refuses to become silent when so directed, such person may be deemed by the presiding officer to have committed a breach of the peace by disrupting and impeding the orderly conduct of the public meeting of the city council, and may be ordered by the presiding officer to leave the meeting. If the person refuses to leave as directed, the presiding officer may direct any law enforcement officer who is present to escort the violator from the meeting. With that, we will move into communications. The first person we have is David Valencia.
Hello. Myself and my wife, who you heard from last week, both have lived here in Southfield for a few years. And while we've lived here, we've had multiple issues with refuse collection at two different homes. And because of these issues, we've talked to other Southfield residents, and there's honestly a lot of confusion and frustration regarding trash pickup. So because of this confusion, I looked at the ordinance, I looked at the city handbook, and I looked at the city guidelines, all available online, and none of them fully correlate. And there's no specific wording saying if we should be bagging trash or not. There's things about being tightly wrapped. There's things about bagging trash or placing it in a secure container. The container size varies between and type varies between, the ordinance says 20-gallon metal containers, which is obscene because nobody has metal containers. I think there's one metal container on my street. Also, most containers are 32 gallons if they're gonna have a wheel on them. So anybody who's old or disabled, they're not dragging a container out, right? So, and then also the ordinance says metal, as I said before, and then the guidelines say plastic or metal. So just an issue, something that could be fixed, something that could be improved upon. And so then everybody knows whose responsibility is what should be bagged, what shouldn't be bagged, et cetera. And then enforcement, we have had multiple issues in our neighborhood with trashy neighbors, literally, and complaints have been made. I've received notifications for little things while trash piles up across it. For having a dumpster for trash, I got a violation notice for that while my neighbor has trash loose. So, and the dumpster was because we were improving our home. So, and then I only got 23 seconds left, so I implore you to look at the situation in Dearborn, where they are dumping GFL and picking up priority waste and saving money because of similar issues. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The next speaker is Carmine Del Gadio. I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm here to follow up on what my husband David said. So we spoke with a lot of our neighbors on Nextdoor, the social networking community service, and I wanted to share some of their comments with my time here. Most of the common issues included broken bins due to carelessness. There's even some video footage from Cranbrook Village, lost lids, bins in the middle of the street, bins thrown out with the trash, trash tossed everywhere, workers were not cleaning up messes that they made, skipped pickups, rude and combative / verbally abusive workers, and one commenter even said that they tip their workers, the trash collectors, which to me kind of sounds more like a bribe to get your trash picked up properly. So I'm going to commence with some comments. So let's see. Tiana said, glad to hear that I'm not the only one having problems. Brand new metal can was dented within a month of getting it. They took one of my cans just last week, and my cans were sitting in the middle of the street after they emptied them. I came from Oak Park, where we had the big trash bins that would come by and dump into it like they do the recycling bins. Why can't we have those in Southfield? Kristen said, GFL leaves glass all over our street every week. I let the city know a couple of years ago that they had, GFL crew came through and swept it up. It was not a problem after that for a few months, and then it started again and has continued. Calls to the city haven't made any difference. Stephen said, I'm in total agreement. My can gets tossed down the yard. One time they were a whole house away. I leave the lids on my trash cans because of raccoons and the possums in the neighborhood, and they throw my lids down the street as if they are frustrated. I'm trying to keep the animals out of the trash and protect my neighbor's yard from the garbage. Sometimes they don't even take all the trash. The last company was much better. I never had a complaint. Whoever chose this company needs to know that cheaper is not always better. Chris Ann said, they're very sloppy and lazy in my opinion, but they have left bags that were not heavy at all. They never get recycling bins completely emptied. They throw our cans so that they blow away, and trash cans are not cheap, or they get cracked and damaged, not to mention the amount of trash that blows down the road and never gets picked up. Many years ago, they had community service people picking up trash, and I'm not sure why they stopped that, but at least it kept the mountains much cleaner and served a great purpose. 8 Mile and Losser area service is poor as well, and I can agree with that. That is my neighborhood. Elaine said, I'm in Bonnie Acres, and my driveway faces Catalapa. We always had issues with waste management driving right by and not picking up our recyclables because we have always had problems with floating garbage and garbage being thrown out of windows on cars onto our driveway. But lately has been much worse. And that's a long one, I don't have enough time. The last one I'm gonna say is that auto cans would be ideal. Then I wouldn't have to track on my lid. Also, why can't we sweep our leaves into the street like other cities? And no snow plows. She kind of got off there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. After last week, did anyone reach out to you to talk to you about these issues?
I don't believe so.
Okay, we'll make sure that,
We got a lot of spam calls, so it could have been lost in the mix, but.
I'll send your information to our Public Works Department and make sure that someone reaches out to you.
It's a citywide issue, though, where it's not just us.
Next is Miss Eunice Rose. How are you?
I'm fine, and I thank you for inviting me to stay on the Southfield Library Board. I've been here since 1972, and I've grown up with libraries, and this one, of course, is my favorite. I'm very proud to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for communications? All right. Mr. Keeler?
Greg Keeler, Southfield residents. I'm surprised I'm not on there since I did sign up prior to that. My question is about diversity and inclusion. Is it just a checkbox for city council, or is it something you're going to do and take serious? Hope United Methodist Church is located on 26275 Northwestern Highway. Eden Corporation is located at 26201 Northwestern Highway. A couple of weeks ago, we had 3 pathways that were being developed. Construction of Greenfield and Piscotty Way along 9 Mile Road. 9 Mile and Cornell Pathway along Northwestern Highway. Lasher to Civic Center, where? It doesn't say where it's along at. It wasn't printed on anything. So when I said 10 Mile to Lasher, or Lasher and 10 Mile to Civic Center, that was the location of what you said. Since you did not say a specific spot like you did the other 2, it needs to be changed on there. And it was not on the paperwork that Terry put up on the screen. That's why I said what I said. That correction should have been made. Not the correction of me, the correction of the paperwork. The Open Meetings Act, when I asked the question about being free buried and being able to see it on YouTube, it wasn't necessarily that it had to be on YouTube. The fact that Lenny Taylor addressed it and said we do have it free and available, I was able to see it the next week. That's why I had the earplugs in my ear, because I was able to find it. Deer feeding, you're gonna make it a fine now. I have apple trees on my street, on my block, on my house. So am I gonna get fined because I got apple trees there and deer's over there eating? Because I have been fined for other ridiculous things. I would like to add in what they said on the trash cans. I've had 3 trash cans replaced before. I have a metal one that they have beat down. And I can show you the pictures of it, and they have beat it every which way you can think of. I have 2 other plastic ones that they have now broken again. So this breaking problem has always been there. It's been there for a long time. And the metal ones, they will say they will tear them up. The lids being thrown in the yards and everything else. I think 4 years ago I addressed that issue because people have ditches in front of their house, especially in front of my neighborhood. And some of them are 3 or 4 feet. So if you throw the lids and they forget and they walk towards their yard, they may go in a ditch that is deep.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else for communications? Okay. The next on our agenda is presentations, and we have a presentation on tax foreclosure prevention by our County Treasurer, Robert Wittenberg.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, everyone. Mayor, council members. So I do have some resources here that I will leave behind as well, but wanted to just come speak just briefly to the people that are here and residents that might be watching at home. We are trying to make our rounds throughout the county, doing what we can to try to prevent tax foreclosure. March 31st is the deadline for anyone that owes 2019 or prior year taxes. And I think the most important message that I will go over a few things here, but the most important message is please reach out to us. If we don't know that, that you're dealing with something, there's something going on in your household, we can't help you. But we need people to reach out to us if they have 2019 or prior year taxes that are delinquent, that are due, so that we can help them. We will call and have a one-on-one discussion with people to kind of talk through what their options are to get them on a repayment schedule. We can also point them towards some resources, and I know Irv here, if he hasn't already, we'll talk about one of the programs that I'll briefly mention as well. But we are really, really pushing people because March 31st is the deadline to pay your taxes off or to get a repayment schedule set up with us. Within our office, there's a resource, the Financial Empowerment Center. We have someone who works within our office that helps. She's in essence like a financial coach that can help people with budgeting, see if there are grants available to them, any resources that are available. So encourage people to reach out. And let me go back just again to, with reaching out to us, the phone number 248-858-0611, 248-858-0611, or you can go on our website, oakgov.com/treasurer, and there's all different information there on how to get in touch with us and how to make payments. To reach out to Rita within our office for the Financial Empowerment Center, the phone number is 248-807-5287. Two other resources I'd like to mention that we are not affiliated with, but we refer a lot of people over to them because they're quite helpful in the community. One is the Accounting Aid Society, and they help prepare taxes for low-income families, and they actually set up in the auditorium for the Board of Commissioners in Pontiac. They actually set up every week, and so you can call the scheduled time and go in there. For the Accounting Aid Society, the phone number is 313-556-1920. So would encourage people to reach out. As well, for Lakeshore Legal Aid, if anyone is not familiar with Lakeshore Legal Aid, they are a legal clinic, if you will, and they help people that are low income and seniors, and they help with everything but criminal law. So we encourage people to reach out to Lakeshore Legal Aid. Phone number is 888-783-8190. And then the program that I will mention here, and again, I think Treasurer Lowenberg might mention it as well if he hasn't already, but a new program which is called MIHAF, the Michigan Homeowners Assistance Fund, MIHAF, and this is a program that uses federal dollars from COVID money that came here to the state, and this is a program that helps people pay their delinquent mortgage, taxes, utility bills, let me see what else is on the list, condo fees. This actually helps people that have if they're on a land contract, but you have to prove some kind of COVID hardship or that COVID impacted you, either your expenses went up or your income went down. And for the tax side of things, it can pay 2019 taxes moving forward. So 2019, 2021, and even 22. And it's also based on income, based on AMI. So, but it's a program that we're really pushing people to reach out on, and as Irv will talk about, probably reaching out here directly. We do it at the county, but it's amazing that you guys are going to do that here as well. So, just want people to be aware of that. Also, as he is here, there's also based on your income levels. There's the poverty exemption, which we've been really trying to communicate and encourage people that fall under that. To talk to their local assessor's office to see if they qualify for that as well, which could reduce your taxes. The last thing I will talk about just briefly is to really encourage people to get ahead with their taxes. Anyone that does owe delinquent taxes, we really want to try to get people ahead because the state mandates pretty high fees and interest rates on delinquent taxes. And so we really want to do what we can to try to get people's heads above water so they're not always struggling to catch up. And so we're really encouraging people to try to get ahead with their taxes because it will save them a lot of money in the long run. And so that's something I've really wanted to push out to people. And so the last thing I will end with, what I kind of started with, is please reach out to us. If there's anything we can do, please reach out to us. Again, specifically for people that have 2019 or prior year taxes, please call our office. Please go on our website. Schedule time to come visit us at our office. Again, 248-858-0611, or our website, oakgov.com/treasurer, and that should have all the information that you need. And then again, I have some flyers and pamphlets here about the organizations I mentioned and the tax timeline and some other valuable resources. So I will probably leave this in the back and then give it to anyone that's able to put these out somewhere as well. But just know that we're here to work with everyone, as well as the council and all the city administrators here, to really do a great job representing our shared constituents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any council members have any questions?
Well,
Go ahead, Councilman Brightwell.
Trey, you could perhaps leave the package with the clerk so to make sure it gets distributed,
That'd be great.
your info. But thank you for the presentation.
Thank you so much.
Our city treasurer, did you have any other comments you wanted to add?
I just wanted to thank Treasurer Wittenberg for coming down to us. It's very important that we want to help people avoid foreclosure of their properties, and definitely the county wants to work with individuals to have payment plans and be able to not have the burden of having to pay off in one lump sum. They can pay it out on a gradual basis, but the main goal is not to be extended in there for a very long time period, because the interest rate can accumulate, and we don't want people to get stuck in the mud, you might say, and constantly paying interest in a high extent, and getting caught up with having the financial plan. Working with the counselor is a very critical point to get their finances in order and be able to right-size the ship in their house financially. And hopefully, we look forward to having the consistency of home ownership in Southfield, and we appreciate everyone that's made the investment in their houses, and we hope that the county also works with us in terms of home improvement programs as well even. And so that's something which we have a good relationship with the county. And the My Half program is a very important program, even though, as Treasurer Wittenberg mentioned about the income limits are much higher for this program. It's about $120,000 for a family of four, approximately. So don't let hearing income-based is going to hold you back. The thresholds are pretty high, so we encourage people to take advantage of this program, and it'll help you with various bills, including the current water bills and past water bills, as well as the taxes as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Mr. Mayor or Mr. Administrator, did you have any comments?
Thank you, Chairman Pro Tem Mandelbaum. We did, at the county's request, put the various links on the city's website to the county's treasurer's office. The programs that were referenced tonight are there. Treasurer Lowenberg is also, 2 weeks ago when we presented the Michigan Housing Assistance Program operated through MISHDA, that is also on the city's website as well. Thank you.
That's great. And you're actually the first city that I've heard that's done that. So that's a really important thing to do, and I commend you all for doing that.
What it did was, by partnering up, it allowed us to be able to utilize the program for our utility bills as well. That was the importance of the city participation in there. So
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Next, we have a legislative update by Senator Jeremy Moss.
Good evening, Mayor, Administration, and Council. It's great to be here in person and to see everybody. I'm Jeremy Moss, the State Senator representing the City of Southfield. I represent 11 communities total in Oakland County. I dare say that Southfield's my favorite because I live here. And I wanted to give a legislative update, too, about some of the things that we've been working on in Lansing. Some of you most of you actually may have gotten my 2022 update in your mailbox. Some of the legislation we've been working on, some helpful numbers, too, for folks if they're looking for resources from the state of Michigan or for some COVID-19 resources around the region. But I did want to talk first and foremost about some of the most contentious bills that have been introduced in the Michigan State Senate, have taken up a lot of oxygen as we've been talking about voter rights and voting rights here in the state. So as you may know, there are some 39 bills that were introduced in the state Senate that do fundamentally change how we vote here in the state state of Michigan. Everything from how you register to vote all the way through the process to how your vote is tallied. Many of them have passed in the Senate with my opposition, of course, and the governor has vetoed those pieces of legislation that could strip someone of their right to vote. But I do want to just give examples of kind of the ludicrous proposals that have made it through the legislature, which I have stood up and opposed. And I know we have our clerk here, our former clerk here, who can understand the process. So everything from when you request an absentee ballot, one of the proposals would require you to put the last 4 digits of your social security number on the envelope as you request your absentee ballot. A clerk does not have access to your social security number, so you'd be giving away your personal sensitive information to somebody who has no ability to do anything with it, can't cross-reference it in the voter file because your social security number is not required to be in the voter file. And if it's not bad enough that they're changing kind of the rules to request an absentee ballot, there's also different ways that they would give you a provisional ballot if you showed up to vote on site on election day. Right now, as you know, you present your ID. You don't have to, but you can present your ID. You will be asked to present your ID, and then you will sign into the voter book to get your ballot. So if one of the proposals required that your signature in the voter book must match the signature that is on file, or otherwise they will not give you a ballot that would count. Even if I'm standing there with my ID, it says I'm Jeremy Moss, I look like Jeremy Moss hasn't voted that day, and I sign into the book. If the person there, the volunteer, the election worker there, does not like how my signature looks and just doesn't feel it matches what's in the voter file, and that voter file could be your signature when you registered to vote when you were 18, it could be the most recent thing you scribbled when you signed out of the Secretary of State's office. Even if you have your ID, one of their early proposals would compel an election worker to issue a provisional ballot, and that ballot may not end up counting at the end of the tallying. So we have fought against kind of these ridiculous, onerous new requirements on citizens, lawful voters, to access their right to their ballot and vote in our elections. I will tell you that there is a petition out there that is going to, because these bills have been vetoed, there's a petition out there to institute these measures via ballot proposal. So I'd be very cautious, or I want to caution people in the city of Southfield to be very careful of what they sign, because there's nothing in Michigan law that requires a petition collector to tell you the truth on their ballot proposal. And we saw that actually last year during the city council election, I was told that there were petitioners out there circulating these petitions, which would, again, restrict access to the ballot, telling people coming in to vote, oh, this is just a proposal for voter rights, when it was exactly the opposite. So just be very careful on the petitions that you're presented. I have introduced bills several sessions in a row to compel people to tell you the truth on their ballot proposal, either to hold the organization accountable if they are training people to deceive, or allowing a person who believes they were deceived to actually go back later and ask their name to be struck from the petition. When I was a House member and introduced these bills passed nearly unanimously. We're in a little more of a hyper-partisan era dealing with elections, so I've introduced this proposal again in the state Senate and pushing for a vote. Another thing that I've introduced on ballot proposals and petitions is, so that ballot proposal when you sign a ballot proposal petition, you expect to vote on it. You expect it to come to the ballot, but it actually makes a pit stop at the legislature first. And the legislature can just adopt a proposal. That's what they're trying to do with this voter suppression tactics. They're trying to bring it to the legislature, never bring it before a vote of the public, and have a simple majority in the legislature just approve it. I've introduced legislation just this past week to increase the threshold by which the legislature can approve a proposal. Right now, it's a simple majority. I think it should be 3/4 majority. The legislature should have a reasonable consensus to adopt a proposal. Otherwise, it goes to the ballot. So I'm dealing a lot with election reform in the state of Michigan because that's just a very sensitive topic right now, and really trying to preserve citizens and their right to vote in this city and in this state. I'm also continuing my work on ethics and open government and transparency. Everybody here knows I'm the FOIA, the FOIA taskmaster. And everybody here knows that if you go into City Hall and request a document, the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, is a tool by which the citizens and residents of this community can get access to city documents. Unfortunately, the legislature is not subjected to FOIA, and the governor's office is not subjected to FOIA. And we are one of 2 states that prevent our residents from getting access to all of state government. And as a result, we have been marked by the Center for Public Integrity for being dead last in transparency, ethics, and accountability of all 50 states in the country. So I'm dogged in my determination to fix this. When I was a councilman here, I wanted to make sure the city council was accessible, and now that I'm a state legislator, I feel the same urgency. So I'm again reintroducing, pushing forward my proposals, which are bipartisan. They have bipartisan support to at long last subject the governor and the state legislature to the Freedom of Information Act. So you can know what we're doing. You can have access to the documents in state government. So we've started Sunshine Week this week. It's a week to kind of promote good government measures that give the citizens and residents more access to what their public officials do. So kicking off Sunshine Week, I'm renewing the call to subject the legislature to the Freedom of Information Act. So none of those proposals that I've talked about have actually passed, but nonetheless, I'm very proud of the 8 bills that I have had signed into law, all with bipartisan support. I'll highlight just a few. One, the City Council is very familiar with, the Neighborhood Enterprise Zone Act. When I was on council here a decade ago, I worked with council at the time and administration to create 2 neighborhood enterprise zones in our community. It's an opportunity for the city to identify its most distressed neighborhood that needs more support, that needs homeowners to have the tools to invest in those properties. And as a result, the program was used successfully. Our city assessor works with residents inside those 2 neighborhood enterprise zones to relieve them of property taxes so long as they turn around those savings, invest it into the property, replenish our neighborhoods, raise their own property values as a result. So we successfully increased the threshold for which kind of homes, how many homes in a neighborhood enterprise zone could be applied using this act, and that bill was signed into law. And now I'm pushing for even more communities to enjoy what we've enjoyed here in Southfield, providing homeowners tax relief to give them the resources to upgrade their home. And I commend the city of Southfield for continuing to administer this program. I think it's helped a lot of people in our community. And then I also have introduced a bill regarding criminal justice reform that was passed into law. When somebody completes their sentence, they've committed a crime, and they have been sentenced as a result of that crime, we have to give them more opportunities to set their path forward and ensure that as they complete their sentence, they're not given a life sentence of unemployability. Once they've paid their debt to society, and we should give them all the resources to compete in Michigan's economy. But prior to the legislation that I introduced, the state of Michigan was discriminating against people with a criminal record. If you wanted to apply for a job license that the state licenses, your criminal conviction in and of itself could be used to deny you that job license. So unpacking that for a little bit, we have a state-of-the-art, first in the nation type of program in our Department of Corrections that allows people who are incarcerated to be trained in skilled trades so that they have knowledge and skills when they leave the prison to apply that and to right themselves. But for a time, the state of Michigan was training these people who are incarcerated for jobs that the state knew that they weren't able to hold because they were going to be denied the job license. So I have a bill that was signed into law, part of a bipartisan package, that reforms the definition of good moral character when you're applying for a job license so that that criminal conviction isn't used against you once you've paid your debt in order to fairly compete in Michigan's economy, and we're really proud of that. Lastly, I can talk a little bit about the budget. So last year, using ARPA dollars, using other federal resources, we were able to direct resources right here to Southfield. I know that we were able to get a grant for Carpenter Lake, and we're able to have other things that the city had asked for into the budget, and we're really proud of those efforts. I would be remiss if I don't tell you how hand in hand I work with our state representative, Kyra Harris-Bolden. We are a team here for Southfield. And then the good news is that every year in the budget, I complain and offer an amendment to boost revenue sharing. That's the tax dollars that we pay to Lansing, and there's an expectation it's going to come home here to Southfield to pay for essential services. And for 20 years, the state of Michigan has been balancing its budget on the backs of local communities by cutting revenue sharing, the shared revenue that should come to Southfield. Last year, finally, we're heading in the right direction, a bump to revenue sharing. The governor just gave her proposed budget, which we're debating now in the legislature, continues to bump revenue sharing. And that's important here in the city, as I served on the city council here. When the city outperforms its budget, when the city does better, we put that right into things we enjoy here in Southfield. Parks and rec, road construction, public safety. So revenue sharing is something we feel, and when it's cut, we feel it, and now that we're hopefully going to be delivering more in revenue sharing, we're going to feel it, the positive impact of that as well. So that is my update, but I have extra of these. It talks a little bit about more what I've done in the legislature thus far on behalf of my fellow Southfield neighbors. So I appreciate the time to be able to give this presentation.
Thank you. Anyone on council have any questions? Councilman Cruz?
Thank you, Senator. We really appreciate you coming in today. I have two questions I want to ask about. One is, does the state talk about anything about the concept of community benefits agreements? And I was just wondering if you could update us on that. And as well as you spoke about formerly incarcerated people. I read a while back about leave the box, meaning that you don't have to disclose your felony at the beginning of the process, but you can't do that again, but that people don't even get a real full shape from the beginning, because once they check their box, it's all over.
Yep.
I was wondering if you talk to those two people.
Yeah, I'll take the last part first. Had it not been for this pandemic and the crisis that we all suffered through in 2020, leading up to the pandemic, we were on a roll in the state legislature on criminal justice reform. In the 1990s, it was punitive, punitive, punitive. How can we punish everybody and throw the book at them? But obviously that model doesn't work. And so it was Democrats and Republicans coming together before the pandemic to pass a series of criminal justice reform. We have offered clean slate programs so that you have easier access to expungement. Ban the box was one of those proposals. So I will give council a comprehensive list of these things that have been signed into law so that we recognize that people make mistakes. But when they pay for their mistakes, and they've paid off their debt to society, what do we want to do with them? It helps nobody and harms everybody when we keep them in this vicious cycle. And it helps all of us when we are able to put people who have a criminal sentence back to work. And so I'll give you a whole list of proposals that have been passed and signed into law on a bipartisan basis in this area. And ban the box and clean slate and expungement are among them. So we're really proud of our efforts there. In terms of community benefits agreements, nothing really has come out of the legislature on that. I know that, when people come to council, and I was a member here too, grilling them, well, if we're going to abate, if we're going to support, if we're going to welcome you in, we have an expectation that you're going to be a total member of the community and help out on community projects as well. And I think most people have been agreeable to that. But I was a big proponent when I was on council to put that into the law. And so I don't have any update from the state side, but maybe speaking a little out of turn here, I would bolster any efforts from this community to investigate in that space. How can we put into writing that when you come to Southfield to do business, we want you to be here, we want to welcome the red carpet, but we also want you to be a good community member. And what does that mean? That means employing Southfielders, that means using Southfield vendors, that means coming here and utilizing our community's talent. One quick thing that we did pass so far, has not been signed into law, is reforming the bid process. So it's not just the lowest bid is the best bid all the time. Sometimes we have to better accreditate those who come in for a bid when wanting to contract with the city. And I think that part of that formula should include, what's your expectation to hire people in Southfield and utilize people in Southfield. So I would bolster any of those efforts, but nothing's come out specifically on the state on that.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Good evening, Senator.
Good evening.
This is a sore point. There is talk of, because of gasoline prices being at record high, of talk of suspending the gasoline tax. As you know, having been a councilman, there's one way we get money for local roads as opposed to major roads is through Act 51, which is funded through gasoline tax. Personally, my position is we can't, given the need in our neighborhoods, and I'm talking specifically about neighborhood streets, given the need of so many neighborhood streets needing to be repaved, that I do not want to see, personally don't want to see this happen. I don't know the opinion of my colleagues, but unless there's an alternative funding for neighborhood streets. As you know, you live here, you live on Melrose, and down Melrose, it's...
I hate it. I hate it. I could have spoken on public comment. Jeremy Moss, Melrose Avenue. They've got potholes there.
It's very, very bad. And we have other streets that really need attention, and there aren't grants for neighborhood streets.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be opposed to cutting the gas tax as long as there's substitute funding, because this city and many, many others desperately needs money for neighborhood streets. And the grants that come out are always for major roads or freeways. So I know you know all this, but I want to say it on the record. Thank you.
I can talk on this as long as you'll have me, but I'll try and be as brief. And this is for everyone behind me as well, because this is a proposal we are debating right now in the legislature. I am not immune to paying high gas prices. I drive the same roads and go to the same gas stations as everybody else here, and I know we're at a historic high. So to kind of make this more digestible, yes, the mayor's absolutely right. We have a road funding formula in the state of Michigan. It's called Act 51 of 1951, and it really hasn't been amended much since 1951. So your roads here in the city of Southfield and throughout the state, that money is funded through that pot. That pot is paid for by two sources of revenue. Number one is registration. So you pay your registration. That goes into the Act 51 pot. And number two, gas tax goes into the Act 51 pot. So to say that we would do a gas tax holiday for 6 months, which is what's being proposed, takes money out of that pot. And instead, the proposal will backfill that pot with general fund, with monies that go toward revenue sharing, with money that goes towards mental health services, with money that goes towards other things we depend upon. So we're going to be literally blowing up a pothole in the budget now in order to strip, it's a shell game. Take money from here to fill money from here, but then ultimately we're going to be suffering cuts somewhere else. My colleagues in the Senate, my Democratic colleagues, some of them have, instead of proposing a gas tax holiday, proposing a sales tax holiday on gas, because that money does not go into Act 51. That does go into the general fund. So to take money out of the general fund and then replace it with other monies that is available right now, so that we won't be disrupting the money that is supposed to go towards roads. We could give people at the pump a tax relief that doesn't totally topple over our budget. We wouldn't feel cuts elsewhere. And instead, we could keep Act 51 whole. I just met with architects, engineers, and others just last Friday And they're concerned about this. They're concerned about their ability to fix the roads if there is this 6 months gas tax holiday. So instead, we're going to see how we can refine this proposal to ensure that people get the tax relief that they deserve for this odd period of time where gas prices are ridiculous without disrupting other services that they depend upon. So the vote will be this week, and I'll keep you posted.
Thank you. Mr. Administrator?
Thank you, Councilman Mandelbaum. First of all, I'd like to just thank the senator for his support in our, which we'll be acting on in item C, San Marino, a safe water drinking program. Started from a conversation over 3 years ago that his office put together, and it brought in a grant of 1.1. We're acting on that. For council's knowledge and the general public, we're going to knock out 99 homes and connect them to a potable drinking water system. We still have another 257 homes on wells, and we're trying to come up with some creative ways. We're hopeful that the federal infrastructure bill will create a new opportunity. So I want to recognize the senator on that, and we're also looking at some other ways to help mitigate some of the cost of septic systems. Since the senator was on council, we are down to just a little over 1,000 homes on septic. When you were here, we were over 1,600 homes.
Yeah.
So we've made substantial progress. We're still looking for resources. We see an opportunity with the federal legislation, and we will need Eagle's support. I just want to comment on roads. I think the mayor's comments and the senators are right on mark. You know, quite frankly, for this community, if we were to lose that money, that funds our streets and highways. That funds the equipment that we have debt service obligations on. To take a 6-month hiatus from that revenue stream, I couldn't think of any worse public policy decision to be made. Frankly, it would mean pink slips. The very few people who fill those potholes, who make sure those roads are striped, et cetera, we would not have a funding source. Our funding source is not general fund taxpayer dollars, it is Act 51 revenue dollars. That is pretty much a universal throughout every community in this state. And I think it's real important that we stay strong. And I'll even say this at the federal level. The discussion there is very much reckless because that is what provides the match on the few roads we are doing. And this year's roads, be it Northwestern Service Drive from Bell to Telegraph, be it Berg Road, and I'm forgetting our third road, but we have almost 6 miles of roads being resurfaced this year that leverage federal dollars. To have that revenue stream jeopardized is just horrific. Not only what I find really interesting is even in the new federal legislation, we didn't get anything sustainable. It's all one-time money. And later on, in one of the council items, I make reference to the bipartisan legislation passed last fall, $550 billion. That's a good down payment, but it isn't everything. I am curious, criminal justice came up. Prior to the pandemic, a lot of us were hopeful that court reform would be on the agenda. Just today, that was about a 20-minute conversation with a number of key members of our staff. Like a lot of first-ring suburban communities, we're struggling to maintain our courts. How we fund them has changed so dramatically. We need a different thought process. And then, Senator, there are a number of other things from bridges to brownfields, and as we go through the recovery dollars, we're hoping that the state makes those decisions sooner, and I believe the governor is too, but it seems to be hitting that bipartisan. So I would love to hear what your thoughts are on the courts.
Yeah, I've heard this. And one of the louder communities in my district, which you might have been talking to, is Hazel Park. Hazel Park has prepared a huge packet on court reform and specifically funding our courts. So we're diving into that, and I will keep you posted. I haven't seen any proposals, meaningful proposals come out that would solve the problems of directing more dollars to our courts. But let's chat, because I want to be a part of this work group and part of the conversation.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
It's just an item I haven't kept up with that much, but it deals with insurance. And when we changed the formula, a lot of individuals were left out, and especially individuals who are in dire need for the day-to-day activity for that insurance to cover their activities. And I understand that there's some type of carve-out or some type of carve-out that will go back into that catastrophic fund to aid those individuals. Can you just give us a slight update on how that's working?
Absolutely, and I'm looking at our county treasurer back there. So when he was a state house member when I was in the state senate, and when auto insurance reform passed, I was one of 4 no votes on this in the Senate. It passed with 34 yes votes and 4 no votes. And now we're hearing people talk about the unintended consequences, the unforeseen consequences. These were foreseen. This is why I voted against it. When you get into a car accident, which does not discriminate against any one of us, you would want that health care to be there. And there were better proposals that I proposed, that other colleagues proposed, to rein in the insurance company from billing us exorbitant fees, rather than first gutting medical care. So now there's an option for you to not select unlimited coverage. You can select a lower rate or a lower rate or a lower rate. And I said at the time, you know, smaller pool, higher risk. The system itself is starting to show wear and tear of collapsing. Because we give these options to folks to lower their medical care, which I will never do because a car accident doesn't discriminate against any of us. And as a result, we've seen issues where the whole system is kind of falling apart. One of the bigger complaints too is taking money out of the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Fund, which we all pay into. That money that we're going to get as refunds, good. You know, I hope everybody finds value in it, but the reality is that that fund was designed to support any one of us who may need it should we, God forbid, get into a catastrophic accident and suffer injuries. And we still don't know what's in the fund because it's not subjected to FOIA or the Open Meetings Act. We still don't have all of the information. And so to have this big payout from the fund as a result of this bill could make people happy that they're getting a $400 relief, but we're paying $6,000, $5,000 in auto insurance, and this was a drop in the bucket to the real savings that I pushed for to better rein in the insurance industry and better govern over the industry first rather than the medical care you can accept or expect. So yes, we've seen legislation to ensure that people who are currently receiving no-fault coverage due to their catastrophic accidents don't get kicked off of their coverage. They'll have the rug pulled out from under them. That was my big fear that would happen, that people who had a guaranteed expectation that they were going to have their medical care covered for the rest of their lives are now seeing that system collapse because the money's not there. And we have a few fixes in the legislature to that portion of the law, that if you are in this system, we want to make sure you still have the same care that you expected when you suffered through your accident. So there are fixes out there. I'm pushing for bipartisan support to them, but on the front end, I did not support the changes to this law, and now we're seeing all of the problems that a few of us highlighted when we voted against it, including former Rep. Wittenberg voted against it. Did I say everything right? Yeah.
Okay.
And you're going to hear a lot about this because this law was very challenging, and you're going to hear more cases and more cases of people who had an expectation of care here in the state of Michigan that's no longer there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Banks?
Senator Moss, thank you very much for your service and also for doing the right thing and fighting for us and fighting for these bills and legislation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I lean on Councilwoman Banks a lot for for when I talk about these voting things. So thank you.
Thank you. And I believe our city treasurer has a question as well.
One thing that was important for Southfield that I believe is going through a legislative process right now is the Veterans Tax Exemption.
Yes.
And so that reimbursement to the city of Southfield will mean over $300,000 for us annually, and so it's very important. I know it's something we've been talking about previously, and so we can get an update on that.
When I sat down and took office as state representative, Irv cornered me. Wouldn't let me go, and then brought in the Southfield Township treasurer too. So there is a tax exemption for disabled veterans here in the city, but the city is not made whole for these exemptions. We want to honor our veterans. We want to honor those and make their lives post-service easier. But we also don't want our cities to be financially strapped due to these exemptions. I have co-sponsored a bipartisan bill to reimburse cities for the tax exemption for these particular exemptions.
Thank you very much for your efforts.
You got it.
Any other comments? I would just like to thank you for the $600,000 you were able to find us for our Carpenter Lake.
We went through the couch cushions in the Capitol. We tried everywhere to find this money, but we got it for you.
We appreciate any more money you can find for our parks or for general.
Freeway Park by chance?
That could be. That would be wonderful.
We'll work on it.
But thank you very much for all your work on behalf of our city.
You got it. All right. I will be here more regularly now that we're in person, so you'll see me.
Thank
Thanks.
you. All right, next on our agenda, we have 2 reappointments.
Good evening, Council. And I'd like to call up Uni Rose and Bruce Collins the second. Ms. Rose, as you heard earlier, has served for, all right, she says 400 years. I'll go with that. On on the city's library board. And 3 years ago, council approved my appointment of Bruce Collins. And their terms have expired, and I'm asking the council tonight to reappoint them to another 3 years on the library board.
Council?
Madam Chair?
Oh, so, go on. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we reappoint to the Southfield Library Board, Ms. Uni Rose and Mr. Bruce Collins.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilman Banks, supported by Councilman Brightwell, for the reappointment of the Southfield Library Board of Eunice Rose and Bruce Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The clerk will do a swearing in, correct, for your second term?
Thank you very much, and congratulations. Next on our agenda, we have no minutes. We have public hearing. This is PZRRUDD 22-0001, rezoning request to create a residential unit development district. Mr. Spence?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, council, mayor, administration. So your first item on your agenda for public hearing this evening is PZRRUD 22-0001. Petitioner is John Grace Arms, LDHA, LLC. This is the existing John Grace School located 21030 Indian Street on the east side of Indian between 8 Mile Road and Shiawassee. Current zoning of the property is R1 Single Family Residential, and this property is RUD eligible, as are a number of other of our school sites within the city of Southfield. The proposed zoning is Residential Unit Development District, and the request is to allow the adaptive reuse of the existing John Gray School for senior housing and construct a new building with additional senior housing units, plus provide a variety of recreational, social, and community-oriented activities. This is an aerial photo of the existing site. You can see the existing school directly on the north side of the property, and the south side of the property actually has some recreational amenities on it right now. Current zoning is R1 Single Family Residential with recreation conservation for a future land use map. And as I had noted, this site is RUDD eligible. And with that, we do have Mr. John Abella from Spalding D. Decker here this evening, and Mr. Abella will be making the presentation from here on out this evening.
Thank you, Jeff. If it pleases this honorable body, John Gray School is a landmark structure and deserving of preservation. The John Grace Arms is a project that not only proposes to adaptively reuse a structure built in 1921, but also serve as an ever-growing need of affordable senior housing. Per AARP, when it comes to the future needs of our nation's housing, when it comes to future needs of our nation's housing is severely deficient. By 2030, 1 in every 5 Americans will be over the age of 65, and our nation will face a severe shortage in accessible and affordable housing to meet their needs. For the 2019 U.S. Census Bureau American Community Survey, there were 15,528 persons 65 years or older residing in the city of Southfield. 20.4% of Southfield's total population are individuals 65 and older. Of those seniors, 36% live alone. The poverty rate for persons over 65 was 15%. Currently, Lockwood Management manages over 500 senior apartments in the city of Southfield that are set aside for senior households earning no more than 60% of the area median income. There is a 2-year wait list for seniors desiring safe and affordable housing. The Southfield Housing Commission has almost 1,500 households on the wait list. The American Community Survey of 2013 found that the median household income for seniors in Southfield is $39,309. There are 1,820 seniors still working in Southfield. Can you go to the next slide, please, Jeff? The John Grace Arms will consist of 51 one-bedroom and 9-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments. The apartments will be reserved for seniors earning 60% or less of the area median income. A significant percentage of seniors who are 55 and older contribute to the workforce. Nearly half the residents of John Grace Arms are estimated to be actively employed. Beaumont Hospital's Farmington Hills campus is actively recruiting, as well as other large employers such as Superior Industries, KS International, Chessex, Arcadia, GST, Auto Leather, ThyssenKrupp Materials, Creed, Denso, and the International Automotive Components Group. Can we go to the next slide, please? As Jeff stated, we are currently zoned R1, and we're proposing the RUDD. Next slide, please. So the existing conditions, we have this beautiful school built in 1921, and as I stated, we hope to adaptively reuse it into senior housing. Next slide, please. So this is the existing site layout. You can see the school on the upper portion, and then there's that dash line, and there's a park or green space located on the south side of the site. Next slide, please. So this is our proposed site plan. We are proposing, well, first of all, you can see that the light gray is the existing building, and the darker gray is this U-shaped addition. We are proposing 62 parking spaces on site, plus an additional 18 on the street parking. We're proposing the public park, which is to your right, which will have amenities that I'll describe in a moment. On the top of the site, if you will, where that striped area is, that is a drop-off area with a bus shelter. We also have public art that will be displayed in the form of a mural on the gymnasium, on the exterior of the old gymnasium. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we are proposing to professionally landscape the main entries to the building, as well as beautifying the site with more trees and green space. Next slide, please. So the existing school on the ground floor, we are proposing 14 units, 12 of them single, 2 of them being double units. On the upper right-hand corner, you see a space that says community. We are using that as not only a community space for the residents of the John Grace Arms, but also the community at large, the John Grace Arms community that's located within the neighborhood can reserve that space for special events. We've included 2 ADA compliant restrooms that you can see right by where it says kitchen. And then to the left, you'll see something that says reading and games. We are repurposing the old kindergarten space into a reading and games room for the residents. Next slide, please. The upper floor of the existing building, we are proposing 4 units, 2 singles and 2 doubles. And in the middle, you see an item that says library. That is an existing library that we intend to remain as a library space. Next slide, please. So the proposed plans in this U-shaped configuration, on the ground floor, we're going to have 21 units, 19 singles and 2 double units. Next slide, please. And then on the upper floor, 21 units as well, 18 single and 3 double units. Next slide, please. The room layouts are quite nice, I think, and not only because I drew them, but because I think that they really work well for people. There's a single unit that has a really large kitchen and dining area, a nice size bedroom space, a large closet, and a very nice bathroom, and then there's a laundry facility as well. The double unit basically adds an extra bedroom and closet space. Next slide, please. And then we also are offering barrier-free layouts, very similar to the previous slide. However, the bathrooms get larger, doorways are more accessible, closet spaces are set up a bit different, and the kitchen areas are made ADA compliant. So as I stated, there will be 60, next slide please, Jeff. This is a study of the existing building. If you look at the top image that says West Study, on the left side of that image is the existing building drawn as a line drawing. And then from the center portion over to the right, that is our proposed addition. We didn't want to copy what was there before. We wanted to complement what was there. Next slide, please. We intend on using a very similar brick and stone detailing. Next slide, please. This is a detail of the existing front door of the John Grace Arms. And you can see that slide in the middle. That's the proposed brick that we want to use. Unfortunately, you can't see the window in the slide. You can see it better on the smaller screens. It's very similar to what is on the existing buildings. Next slide, please. So some of the amenities that I had described earlier. First of all, the bus shelter. We're going to provide a courtyard in the U-shaped portion of the building. It's going to have a pavilion, a walking path, benches, a small dog run, and trash receptacles. Next slide, please. And here is a rendering of our proposed building, looking at it from Indian, and then also from what will be the rear parking lot. So as I stated, the project will have 60 residents, 7 of which will be barrier-free. That'll be 51 single units and 9 double units. We'll have an interior courtyard with walking paths, benches, and a pavilion. Parking for 62 on the property, 8 of which will be barrier-free, 18 spaces along Indian Street, professionally landscaped grounds, public art that we hope to work with the Southfield Historical Society and also create a neighborhood workshop, a public park that will be ADA accessible with circular walking paths, benches, trash receptacles, a tot lot, open green space, a small shade structure, and trees, and all will be added per the Revitalization Plan recommendations. Many of the features of the existing building will be maintained and preserved as well. Lockers, display cabinets, the library, some clocks, and some chalkboards. And just to clarify that, 100% of these units are visitable units. That means that there are no stepped entries. We have the barrier-free parking, we have barrier-free entry doors, we have barrier-free bathrooms, and electrical switches at reachable heights, and accessible route throughout to gain access to the first floor living room. The community room can be open to the public. As I stated, it also has barrier-free restrooms and a small non-commercial kitchen. We're also working we've been in communication with SMART to offer services to the building, and we're also providing that covered drop-off in the back and also one on the side. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to comment may come up to the microphone. You have 3 minutes, and please provide your name and address.
Fred Bunker, 24201 Garner. Who's the current owner of this property?
We'll address all the questions after your comments.
Excuse me?
We'll address all the questions afterwards.
Well, my question's pursuant to who owns it, who's going to pay for all the improvements you're describing? That'll be described when I sit down?
Yes.
Okay, how much will the sewers cost? How much will the water cost? How much will the windows cost? What will be the price for the smallest available space? Is it going to be low income, median income, or like Northland? We have no idea. Is this a city involving our tax revenue to do these improvements? Or is this money that we're expecting to rain from Lansing in this rebuilding effort to turn what could be conventional acreage in the city that's already zoned R1? I don't understand how this property's remained R1. We have property in the city that consists of acres of parking that's zoned R1. So maybe you could clear me up on what constitutes R1 zoned housing, since I have a 13-acre parking lot across the street from me that's currently zoned R1. So we get a false idea of what percentage is zoned R1 suitable for residential when properties like this are still zoned R1. And rezoning it sounds like it would take a larger amount of council members to approve this. I'm not sure the public hearing was indistinct as far as what's being done here tonight. Are you approval to go ahead with this? And at what expense will the final amount be that, like Northland, we told, what will our break-even point be? How much will we have to spend and recoup to break even on this? Thank you for your time. Let's do all we can to save the people who are dying in the world. It's much more important than this falderall in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
question was more so for the developer. The bathrooms that you will have, will the shower areas be ADA compliance for a wheelchair to roll in and for people that use these chairs and everything else to walk into the shower? Or will it be a bathtub? Or as life changes for you, have different life events, and you can no longer use a tub, will it be a walk-in, which would make it easier from the get-go as you have these different changes in events? That was my only question. The other one, Mr. Bunker asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this matter? All right, seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Mr. Spence, did you want to address some of the questions?
Yeah, with regard to ownership, the applicant was John Grace Arms LDHA LLC. The property is owned by the city.
Yes.
With regard to the price for windows and sewers and such, I don't have that information. I don't know if Mr. Abella might have a cost estimate for those various items, but I do not have that here, nor do I have the price here available for what the unit cost would be on a monthly basis.
If it pleases the council, first of all, these are going to be low-income units. As far as the cost of the windows, we don't have a cost on that yet. We have a general cost for the entire project, but I can't specifically say how much the windows are going to cost. For the second question regarding bathrooms, Jeff, can you go back to that slide, please?
How far back?
One more, I believe. Yep, one more. One more. We need to get to the plan. I think, yeah, here we go. Go up, yeah, right here. So to answer the question, we have 8 barrier-free units. So the bathrooms are wheelchair accessible. So a person can wheel in. There are grab bars within the bathroom. The lavatory sink is at a height where a wheelchair can comfortably roll up into it. The shower is an open space, so basically it's a tiled space that a person can then roll into and either bathe themselves or have help bathing. The other units are adaptable units, which means they have 3-foot wide doors, which follow the barrier-free code, and also they can be made into barrier-free units at a cost, of course, but they are adaptable units. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, do you have a total project cost? I think that was one of the questions.
May I? Pardon?
As the speaker has indicated, this is a property owned by the city. At this time, it is under a 2-year option with the John Grace Limited Housing Dividend. The estimated project cost is a $17 million project. We are working to secure tax credits from the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, just like in the same fashion that we did for McDowell Towers and River Park Place in 2014. A $38 million investment was made there on a per unit. This salvages an asset that most likely in the next 2 years would be facing the wrecking ball and relieving the taxpayers of probably a demolition cost between $750,000 to $1 million. The $17 million cost includes all of the sewers as well as the parking, the other site amenities. It is a standard development. It's very similar type projects are done anywhere 15 to 20 a year in the state of Michigan.
And while we're talking about cost, none of this is coming out of the city's budget, correct?
There is no cost to the city.
All right, Mr. Mayor,
You know,
you had a-
pretty much just like the rest of the activities of the Southfield Nonprofit Housing Corporation.
Mr. Mayor, you.
Yeah, I was going to add that this is not a city project. And this evening, what's before the council is a rezoning of the property to allow as R1, the property is single-family residential, to RUDD allows for greater density, thus the 60 units. And this project, behind the sort of the parent of this project is the Southfield Nonprofit Housing Corporation. I do have a question for Mr. Abella. John, are the windows in the original building are relatively new? They were replaced a number of years ago. They are energy efficient windows. They're double paned. And the plan is to keep those windows, correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, I just want to add the green standards, if you could speak to those, John.
Well, we're not seeking lead, if that's what you're asking.
As this project is bid out, it has to meet all environmental green standards.
Correct.
That is a standard MSHDA process. The building will be far more energy efficient to operate for the ownership group, as well as the materials that are used have to meet green standards. Low VOCs, the adhesives that are used, the full 9 yards. And again, the same standard we went through with the River Park Place and McDowell Towers.
You know, in the rear of the room, and maybe she could speak to it, is Janae Eisenmenger. The approximate rent, do we have that figure? They're subsidized units, so.
Can you please give your name and address for the record?
Sure. Good evening. Janae Eisenmenger. My corporate address is 27777 Franklin Road, Southfield, Michigan. And to speak about the green standard, we're pursuing a National Green Building Standard Silver designation for the building. And as was mentioned, we will have blown-in insulation, the windows will remain, and the new addition will have energy efficient windows. All appliances will be Energy Star. We'll have low flush toilets, low flow showers, low VOC paint, if at all no VOC hopefully, premium roofing materials that do not allow for the roof to be absorb too much heat, and also to have extra insulation as well too, so heat loss is not lost from the roof, if you will. We hope to also install native species, ornamental grasses, and other perennials that are native to Michigan and are drought resistant. And then as far as the rents, we have rents that range from the 1 bedrooms at $750, and then the 2 bedrooms can go as high as $1,150. And there's a range of 30 to 60% of the units will be set aside for, all the units will be set aside for households that do not earn more than 60% of the area median income, and a portion of those units will also be set aside for households that do not earn more than 30% of the area median income.
So, to be clear, although you've cited the rents, that's not what the tenant would pay because they're subsidized.
Well, the tenants, any tenant occupying a unit that is set aside for households that do not earn more than 60% of their area median income, those rents will be established by MSHDA, and those will not exceed more than 30% of a tenant's household. And also in that factor, they factor in expenses for utilities as well as rental insurance. The units that are set aside for households that do not earn more than 30% of the area median income, we have applied to the Southfield Housing Commission for vouchers for those tenants to pay for their rent.
Mm-hmm. Section 8.
Correct. Those will be Section 8 project-based vouchers, correct.
Right. Which, again, as been mentioned earlier, currently our housing office has almost 1,500 applications for people looking for subsidized, in need of subsidized housing.
That's correct.
We do not have enough housing for the people on this, on the waiting list.
That's correct. Lockwood currently manages over 500 senior units in the city, and we currently have a 2-year wait list for tenants wanting to obtain affordable and safe housing.
And to be clear, that almost 1,500 figure is not all seniors.
Correct, and that is a separate wait list kept by the
Right.
Southfield Housing Commission.
But there's still many, many senior adults on that list.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Spence?
I have nothing more at this time.
All right, counsel? Councilman Brightwell?
I just have kind of a human interest question here. This is a very old building, and what type of protocol from an engineering standpoint or a structuring to determine that once this building is turned over to for its stated purpose, it has been determined that the plumbing, which has been there since the building was there, is up to code, is up to date, and what type of determination is made with respect to the electrical system, which has been there since the beginning of time, is up to date, and also what is the protocol from an engineering standpoint to determine this building is structurally sound?
Typically, what happens with existing structures is that we bring in a team of engineers, both electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, plumbing engineers, and also structural engineers, and have an evaluation of what the existing structure has going for it. I can tell you from the walkthrough, it looks to be a very sound building. Where we are proposing all of those new bathrooms within the units, that's all new plumbing. The electrical, it currently has a boiler system. Most likely that boiler system is going to be abandoned, and we will go to single units within each residence. The electrical will be brought up to code, and structural, again, we didn't see any issues, but once the ceilings come out, structural engineers will then get in there and have a very good look at it, but just a cursory look at it, we didn't see any cracking or anything that looked like the foundations were settling at all. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, so this is a national standard for looking at old buildings to repurpose them for today's use.
Well, we look at all of the systems, and then they have to be brought up to code.
Okay, all right.
Add for Mr. Brightwell that the original building was built in 1921, and then a second floor was added in 1926, and then subsequent additions all the way up to 1962. So the entire structure is not 1921.
All right, any other questions? Ms. Banks?
Thank you. So will Lockdale be managing this building and property?
Yes, Lockwood will be managing this property.
Who is developing the project?
It is a consortium. Jeff, can you state the name again?
It's John Grace Arms LLC
Thank you.
plus Southfield Nonprofit Housing Corporation.
And then who is John Grace Arms LLC? There's nothing in the packet, what?
That's the entity that is created to do the construction and get the financing together.
And who's part of that group?
There is members of the Southfield Nonprofit Housing Board. And all of this is contingent, of course, on MISTA grant. The application is going forward on April 1st. with the expectation that the grants will be announced in July. And there's no guarantee that the project will get VISTA funding. It's a competitive grant.
So if the project does not get MISTA funding, then what happens?
You apply again.
I'm sorry?
You apply again.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Who was developing the project, did you say?
It's John Grace Arms LLC, and maybe Mr. Zorn could help me out there.
MISTA is not giving a grant, it's an allocation of tax credit applications.
Yeah,
The
sorry.
application being submitted is requesting $1.5 million a year for the next 15 years, Janae, of tax credit allocations. So the state of Michigan from the federal government receives $1.50 per capita. It's distributed through this competitive process. The ownership group consists of the Southfield nonprofit and Lockwood. Lockwood is coming in as a manager and guaranteeing certain debt obligations within this structure. Similar to what we did with the River Park Place of McDowell's, very complex process. And with all tax credit deals, there is a period during the compliance period where other entities actually own a percentage. We still own it, manage it, but there's a controlling interest giving up so that that entity can receive the tax credits from the federal government. It's a very complex form of financing. As I said earlier, it was put in place in 1986 as part of tax reform under then President Reagan to create new affordable housing opportunities, and even as recently as the tax reform the government experienced in 2017 is changed the potential yield per dollar. When we did the tax credit deal at McDowell Towers and River Park Place, the marketplace was hammering to get those tax credits, and we got a little, I think we got a dollar per dollar. Now we're looking at roughly 89 cents is the value we're getting, and that's all part of it. But at the end of the day, on a monthly basis, this will become part of a portfolio that is managed by Lockwood, who's the day-to-day manager for River Park Place, McDowell Towers, and Woodridge, and the ownership group will be that joint venture. The legal name of the entity, which is the applicant for the tax credit, is John Grace Arms, LDHA Limited.
And I just add that these are complicated, but this is how you get affordable housing in a community. With the MISTA backing and the tax credits. Otherwise, it would be market rate housing.
Thank you. Also, let's see. In the area, well, the seniors, there's when I drove through by the area, there's like nowhere for the seniors to walk if they want to go to a grocery store, or what is in that area for seniors to walk to. I was looking at some of our other senior complexes, and there's parks or shopping centers or grocery stores, but there's really nothing in this area.
The sidewalk is being installed, part of the Shiawassee Road repaving project that you approved last week. Sidewalks will be installed from 8 Mile to Inkster, and sidewalks are also proposed for Indian Street.
Okay, and Indian Street will go to the shopping center
Shiawassee,
on Beach Road?
Yeah. There is sidewalk across Inkster. There's the Salvation Army Food Center right at Inkster and Shiawassee. And a little farther down on Shiawassee in Farmington Hills is the Care Center, which has a veterans, a clothing store, a food pantry, a whole number of services that are within the mile radius, plus Beaumont Hospital, the Botsford Beaumont Hospital, and urgent care on Grand River are all in that mile radius of this. Plus the McDonald Towers, River Park Place, and Woodbridge all have van service. So there will be van service. Our Parks and Recreation Department will be providing activities at the center for neighbors, for the neighborhood, as well as for the residents of John Grace Arms.
So, and that was going to be my next question. There will be a bus there to transport the residents like there is at
Right.
McDonald Towers?
We have TOS, but besides TOS, we have both McDonald Towers, River Park Place, and Woodbridge have a band. The same thing would happen at John Grace Arms.
And if I may, through the chair, to Councilwoman Banks, some of the questions that you're asking are actually in the next presentation with the revitalization plan. And I'm just going to I'm going to flip to just one particular portion of it, and this is the map. John Grace is the yellow star there in the middle, and you can see the various amenities that are available, both retail, restaurants, medical, some of them within a half mile of the John Grace site, as well as the outer ring is that 1 mile. So there are a large number of amenities and services available to those who would be within the John Grace Arms facility.
Thank you. And then, will there be a double door entrance to keep someone from grabbing the door when someone leaves the building, so they don't have access to the building?
Currently, McDonald Towers, River Park Place, and Woodbridge have fobs. Did away with keys years ago because keys get copied, lost, and you have greater control, as you all know, with fobs.
But her question is the double doors. So you have one set, it locks, and then another set.
As the plan gets developed, the idea is to create vestibule areas, so there'll be one set and then another set. Yes.
Thank you. And then you address the rent. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Mr. Zorn?
Yes. Thank you. I'm really enjoying some of these questions, in particular the questions about seniors when we talk about sidewalks. I think this council realizes and recognizes what you've accomplished in walkability. You've added miles of sidewalk, and I turn to Mr. Spence to give us that. Those points of conductivity, Shiawassee to 8 Mile. As we rebuild Shiawassee, we're putting that sidewalk in. Now I'm thinking of our COSA strategy, where our first strategy is to always have our seniors age in their own homes. Not always possible. Combination of economics, as well as the cost of maintaining a home. One of the debates going on in the public policy pendulum is so many of these incentives are focused on traditional downtowns. And that means a community like Southfield, which a suburban community that didn't always have a traditional downtown, our seniors may have to go and move out into communities they have no desire to live in. They've known Southfield for their whole lives, their last 20, 30 years, whatever the period has been. So in having this, it gives them more of those amenities. And the slide that that Jeff Spence just had up a moment ago, as well as the next item you're going to see, there's an engagement of everything from healthcare providers to grocery stores to restaurants. All of the amenities are there. This was the same exercise we went through with the Valley Rouge sub-area plan in 2014, and that was done as part of the McDowell Towers and River Park Place. On the surface, people think these things aren't there, that there's not readily a dentist, a barber shop, and all the amenities we take for granted. And when we dialogue with MISHDA, it's a constant point that we're pushing, that that model where everything is right next door may not be realistic. But when you look at what's in a half mile from the site to a mile, we do have all of those basic needs. And that's part of the application that we're submitting to MSHDA, and it's part of a very competitive scoring strategy. You know, so I'm enjoying the questions because these are some of the things this council has been working on. You know, when you adopted the COSA plan, when I interact with COSA, you know, we all want our parents to be able to stay at home as long as they can. But when that's not possible, this is the caliber of a place I'd want my loved ones to be in. You know, safe, clean, all their basic needs are met. So if you could just keep that in mind, I appreciate council's consideration on this.
Okay, thank you very much. Council? We need a motion.
Oh.
Ms. Banks?
Councilwoman Banks, I move that the rezoning request to create a residential unit development district to rezone 4.62 acres of land from R1 single-family residential property located at 21030 Indian Street be approved.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilwoman Banks, supported by Councilman Cruz, for the approval of PZRR UDD 22-0001. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have to introduce ordinance.
Yes, I move that we introduce ordinance number 1750 to rezone 4.62 acres of land from R1 single-family to residential unit development district, RUDD, located at 21031 Indian Street. That's for project PZR RUDD 22-0001.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilman Banks, supported by Councilman Brightwell, for the introduction to introduce ordinance number 1750. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have one ordinance to enact.
Mr. Chair, I move that we enact ordinance number 1749, John Grace pilot ordinance.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz, to enact ordinance number 1749, John Grace pilot ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we have our agenda items. Our first item is the presentation and discussion regarding the John Grace Revitalization Plan.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Mendelbaum. So this is accompanies the RUDD that Council had just approved. This is the John Grace Revitalization Plan, and as Administrator Zorn had noted, this is following a similar path that we've done with other revitalization plans, including the Valley Woods that we did a number of years ago. From an overview standpoint, I'll just go over this briefly. This is the adaptive reuse of the John Grace School on Indian between 8 Mile and Shiawassee. Council has approved the RUD rezoning for this particular location. And again, Lockwood Companies is proposing 60-unit development for affordable senior housing. Project on site being considered is a renovation of the existing building, construction of an addition and courtyard, public park, dog run, and an indoor community space. From a context standpoint, the question comes up, why would we put together a plan like this? And it does have a number of aspects about it. Number one is community participation. There were group community meetings that were held at Beechwoods with regard to adaptable reuse of the John Grace School. Also, the revitalization plan lays out the goals and objectives to make sure that the plan gets funded and implemented. Things that we discuss include walkability, safe, decent, affordable housing. There's also an economic development arm to this as well, with streetscape improvements, infrastructure, transportation, and access to supportive services. As you already know, property is currently zoned R1 single-family residential with the RUDD now added as of today. Southfield, we are a growing community. However, we are also growing older. It's noted that in less than 2 decades, the number of older adults will far outnumber children, and that by the year 2060, 1 in 4 adults would be 65 years or older. And that trend is not only something that's happening in Southfield, as you can see by the graphic there. 2010, our 65 and over population was 18.2%, and in 2019, we were 21.4%. And again, it's not unusual for Southfield, but throughout the state of Michigan, where you're looking at almost a 4% increase in those 9 years of our 65 and over population. There is also in this area, and it's been talked about before, deficiency in senior housing. And nearly 1/3 of households in the census tract of the site are overburdened by housing costs. Nearby senior support services and amenities that we look at are transportation options, clinics, groceries, city services, schools, employment, and community services. And as Administrator Zorn had noted, these are things that we have to show along with investments for this MSHDA application. This is the map that I had shown earlier that does show all the amenities that are located within that half mile to 1 mile section of the John Gray site. Again, they include medical office, retail, restaurants, also social services, parks, retail centers, and natural areas. From Southfield as a whole, this graphic indicates the location for police stations, our fire stations, our parks, and our park land, as well as other senior assets, which include adult daycare, hospice and medical centers, independent or assisted living, nursing care facilities, surgical centers, urgent care, and support services. Transportation is also an important part of the process for the revitalization plan. One of the greatest health risks in Michigan is obesity, and Michigan is the 10th highest in the nation in adult obesity. Easily accessible sidewalks, as well as shared youth pathways, will encourage seniors to use them to help them and create healthier lifestyles. We also have various bus stops, and SMART has at least 4 fixed routes within this particular area. You can see the dashed line adjacent to the star that's there that it shows John Grace. It was mentioned earlier about a brand new sidewalk going within that particular area, and that is the sidewalk location. It also shows other amenities with shared youth pathways and bike routes as well. Investments. Investments are also a very important part of the process. MSHDA does require at least $25 million in private investment and $25 million in public investment over the last 5 years, and another $10 million in future investments in the next 5 years within 1 mile of the particular location. So in this case, within 1 mile of the John Gray Center. Several public and private investments within 1 mile are over $180 million over the last 5 years that include enhanced streets, sidewalks, shared paths, improved parks and recreation centers, and updated public works infrastructure. And over the next 5 years, from 22 and beyond, we're looking at another $60 million of investment in sidewalk construction, shared use pathways, construction and road rehabilitation for Shiawassee, as well as additional park improvements, including John Grace with the .62 acre park that's being proposed for there. as well as other citywide transit enhancements and the hospital expansion for Beaumont. This graphic kind of gives you an indication as to where those additional investments are going, with previous projects in the lighter yellow color, and then future projects in the maroon color. And then this gives you a breakdown of all the area investments, which total almost $271 million between private and public, not only over the last 5 years, but then future projects as well. The John Gray site had various development options. The first one was to actually tear down the existing building and then parcel off the properties for single-family homes. The second option was to repurpose or renovate the existing John Grace building with 14 one-bedroom and 4 two-bedroom units for senior housing. The third option was to leave John Grace building alone and then construct a new building with 37 one-bedroom and 5 two-bedroom units for senior housing. And then you had the third option, which is the combination of option 2 and 3, which would be the adaptive reuse of the existing building, and then expansion approval and expansion for the new U-shaped building, and then an additional public parking community space. And that is the graphic in the RUDD that the City Council had just recently approved for the rezoning for the John Grace Arms project. Recommendations, and obviously we're trying to maximize the community benefit for the project, and so we're looking at public art. I believe Mr. Abella did note the potential for a mural on the existing building. Also residential enhancements, which include covered drop-off and pickup areas, shared outside patio space, seating, trash receptacles, grills, the enclosed dog park and dog run, as well as the public enhancements for the extension of the public sidewalk, and then the indoor community center space, which would be available for public by reservation, and then the park enhancement, which I noted, the 0.62 acre park, which would be on the south side of the property. With that, these are next steps. Obviously, we were at March 14th, and the discussion of the John Grace Revitalization Plan with the council. The Planning Commission has a public hearing scheduled for next Wednesday to act on it, and with the hope of recommending to adopt the John Grace Revitalization Plan. Then this would come back to you on March 21st for a public hearing to adopt. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to field those at this time.
Council, do you have any questions? Mr. Mayor, do you have any questions?
Once again, only to say that these are all the steps that we're taking so that we complete our application to MSHDA. And I did misspeak, I said grant, but it's tax credits. In my mind, it's kind of the same thing. But anyhow, it's financing by April 1st.
Okay. And this will come back next week as a public hearing. So there's no action required this evening.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Our next item, item B, acknowledgement of membership of ICLEI for guidance on sustainability initiatives.
Thank you. This item, I'm simply asking the council just to acknowledge our membership in ICLEI, the Local Governments for Sustainability. ICLEI is part of the United Nations program, but most importantly, with the federal legislation passed on November 15th, the bipartisan infrastructure law, which we'll be more commonly providing it, there are multiple references to local units of government meeting the ICLEI standard. In the state of Michigan, the communities involved are Ann Arbor, Royal Oak, Ferndale, Holland. This is becoming the standard of what is defining green activities, environmental resilience, as well as energy. Southfield has a very strong history, from your green communities to what you did with your energy block grant under the federal stimulus under President Obama. We're looking to position the city over the next course of the years to be able to better secure funds, whether they're from Eagle, the Michigan Great Lakes Environmental Department and Energy Department, or funds directly from the Department from the federal government. Those funds could either be from transportation, or the legislation actually refers to energy block grant being funded again. So just setting that stage that Southfield's positioned to queued up. There's a small group of managers who will be involved in an ICLEI training cohort that is that will begin shaping and guiding our strategy. So I'm simply asking that council receive and place on file and acknowledge. The membership for communities our size is $1,200 a year. The expenditure, because we bought a 4-year membership with various discounts, was $3,840. And this is just part of setting the stage to go after some of those dollars under the infrastructure legislation.
Okay, thank you. Council?
No
Wanna make a
questions.
Motion?
Well, I would just move that the council acknowledge the membership requested.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz, to acknowledge the membership in ICLEI for guidance on sustainability initiatives. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next is agenda item C, approval for contract for San Marino Subdivision Water Services.
Mr. Chairman, Alvin Jensen from the Water Department is here. He'll be assisting. As mentioned earlier this evening and mentioned previously, the city has been awarded what we're calling a C2R2 grant, Consolidation and Contamination Risk Reduction Grant. The proposed location is San Marino. That is to connect the remaining 99 homes to well. And this action in particular is to award the grant to D'Angelo's Brothers of Farmington Hills with all construction and permit costs. And the amount of this project, this authorization is for $547,741.91 to be refunded from the grant in the amount of $1,104,421. And Mr. Jensen's here to help answer questions on the technicalities.
Yes, good evening, honorable body.
Did you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I'm very honored to at least be able to speak about this. This has been a collaborative effort for a very long time, something that the Water Department has wanted for many, many years that has now come to fruition, to have all these people on a sustainable, safe water instead of the well. This was through Councilman Brightwell, City Administrator Zorn, a little bit with myself, HRC, and the collaborative effort of the community itself in taking an active approach to listening to what we had to say, and we heard what they had to say. And the state of Michigan stepping up and providing this money is heaven sent in that respect. So this is a one-time opportunity, and it's fantastic. So,
and if I may add, you know, I made reference earlier to the stimulus in 2009 under President Obama. During that period, former Public Works Director Gary Mention and myself had conversations with then the Department of Environmental Quality, and one of the questions was about funding to help this, almost the last mile from our system to the home. And we were flatly denied that. The statement was that is a fully private function. And what's interesting is the swing in the public policy pendulum, in particular as we wrestle with water. And so we just acknowledged our involvement with ICLEI, clean water, the disposal of sanitary waste properly, storm systems. These are all the types of issues that, as we're beginning to talk about environmental issues and resilience to our climate, these are critical points. Well, Senator Moss was here. I made reference to, we actually know, our best numbers indicate we've got about 357 or 356 homes who are still on private well. And our objective is to make sure that they have a safe drinking water. Wells are safe, but wells need to be tested with some regularity, and that's part of this process. The testing and the monitoring that our Public Works group, Alvin Jensen and his team, Councilman Brightwell helped us work with the San Marino Subdivision. We were able to secure these monies. Now, your math is probably the same as mine, a grant for $1.1 million, and you're looking at your project cost of $547,000, and yes, there will be some engineering costs we incurred. We're quietly working towards how else can we use that money, and can we get Eagle to play along with us. So my comment to council is stay tuned for a little bit more on that, and we're asking for your authorization to allow the mayor and city clerk to authority to sign this contract with D'Angelo's Brothers. And AJ, we're looking at what date for start if council approves?
April 1st, and they're looking to be done around June. This was all through collaborative effort, or competitive bidding through Oakland County, so that all of those steps have helped move this along, and we can start rather quick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Do you have a question?
No,
Ms.
I'm
May?
sorry, no.
Oh, Councilman Brightwell?
No, I was just going to move that we authorize the mayor and the city clerk to sign a contract on behalf of the city with D'Angelo Brothers of Farmington Hills in the amount of $547,741.91.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilwoman Banks, for the approval of a contract for San Marino Subdivision Water Services. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before I wanted to say something. This was this has been in the works for I think 3 to 4 years, at least my involvement, and I just want to commend the city and the community for the collaborative effort of all bodies and all entities involved. Everybody was pulling for this. The community was pulling for it. The city was pulling for it. And it's just a wonderful project, and that everybody was moving forward with respect for this. So this is I guess this is probably the ideal way for the community and the city administration and the political structure to work together. If we can get everybody working the same way, it would be a wonderful world. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the authorization to purchase a Vector for Streets and Highway Division.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kevin Turnquist, DPW Superintendent for the Highway Division. I'm here today to talk about the highway piece of equipment that we have right now. Our Vector is a 2006, and for the last couple years, the Vector has spent more of its time broke down. Haven't been able to use it like we'd wanted to. So last year was probably the worst year, and this Vector is we use it for catch basin maintenance, and we often use it for our drainage and ditching jobs, the culverts. So we'll go through with the Vactor, clean the culverts, and take care of those jobs. Currently, we have 53 work orders that are in that I would really love to clear out of the folder. But that the piece of equipment is a necessity for us. So what we did was we sent the piece of equipment to Dohany's in Northville, and we wanted to have it assessed to see what it was that we were, what kind of repairs we could do to it. We got back the paperwork. It was there for several months, and it was at $145,000 to repair. The problem that we had with the paperwork was the repair came with a letter, and in the letter it says, based on the technician's 360-degree review and report with conclusions of the debris body thickness test, we found the total repairs required to be cost prohibitive related to the market value on the 06 Vactor. We cannot guarantee that the $145,000 estimate will be fully comprehensive, nor will we fully extend the repair requirements until the machine is fully disassembled and reassembled. And then they went on to tell us that they would respectfully submit recommendation to waive the overhaul repairs at this time. So in other words, they couldn't give me any kind of a guarantee, and that was kind of troubling. I know that I stood in front of you guys not too long ago about 2 dump trucks. The dump trucks are, I was informed today, they added another 3 months onto the build. I think it was about 8 months ago, you guys approved the sign truck to be replaced, definitely needed, and that one had another 3 months added on to the build. So the process is really long. They're telling me 6 to 8 months if we were to get a new one. Now, I know I stood before you on the dump trucks with a very similar story. There is a municipality that had a Vactor built, and it's sitting there, and they backed out of it. So I sent a worker and 2 supervisors to Dohany's to give me a rundown. If we were to build a Vactor, does it meet all the expectations of how we would build it? So they came back and they said it met every checklist that we would do. So the Vactor that they have, they did put our name on it, and I did tell them I would contact them after this meeting. It's $444,957, and I did, just for the heck of it, spec out a new one, and we spec'd out a new one with a 6 to 8 month build, which I can almost tell you could add another 3 months to that, at $500,762. So tonight I'm in front of you asking for approval for a Vactor so I can take my folder and 53 complaints and move through them.
All right. Council have any questions? Councilman Brightwell?
Yeah. Well, what type of warranty will you get on this Vactor?
I don't know that. I can't answer that for you. You're talking about on the new Vactor?
Yeah, the new one, yeah.
I don't know. I would have to get back to you on that. I don't know the warranty on a Vactor.
Okay, well, whatever they guarantee, well, you would get back to us, I would like to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, whatever they guarantee, workmanship or whatever, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just a little leery on, especially the letter that came with my $145,000 repair bill
Sure, I
with
got
no
you.
guarantee scares me. They did offer us $10,000 on a trade-in, which I guess it seems like when I first got $10,000 is not a lot, but if I was a company and I was looking to buy a machine, it's not 10,000, it's 144,000 to get it going plus 10,000.
Right, right.
So kind of concerning to me. I mean, for my guys and the catch basin maintenance on the major roads the last couple of years has been hit or miss because the machine's been down. And the ditching complaints are concerning because here we are in the spring, and just today I got, a handful of calls in residents that, want water, standing water in front of their houses and ditches taken care of, and I would like to provide that for them.
Okay.
All right, Councilman Banks?
If we proceed forward with this request, is there a way that there's someone else that might be able to repair the piece that's down, just to have as a backup?
So our mechanics at the DPW did, for a couple years, Band-Aid the repairs, and they made it so we could use it, and they gave it their effort, but it is a specialty, it's a specialty piece of equipment. So when I got back the repair list, yeah, I don't think there is. It's in that bad a shape.
Okay, thank you. So you would trade it in?
Yeah, it really, it doesn't do us any good. I mean, even the parts, like if you're looking at parts, most of the major components on it are shot, and the parts are, so I believe they're 2 body styles newer now. So even if we kept it for parts, I don't even know if the parts would interact.
And I don't know.
If they would be compatible.
Thank you. Do municipalities work together to share equipment? Like, until we receive this new piece of equipment, can we partner or rent with another municipality who may have this to use it for a few days to address some of the complaints that you're receiving?
You want to comment on mutual aid?
Yeah, I mean, so mutual aid for an emergency type situation, yes, they do. But these are kind of, I wouldn't say emergency. They're routine maintenance. But me looking at this piece of equipment, drooling over this thing, I really, I want to make the full. I mean, ever since I was a supervisor, make the folders go away. That's the goal. There's a pothole folder, there's a ditching folder, there's a Vector folder, and then there's regular maintenance. I mean, if we had an emergency, then we do have mutual aid. Something that was, really to go wrong.
But you said this is going to take 8 months to
No.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
So to buy a new one, the build is 6 to 8 plus 3. I would say the 3 months plus is because that's the times we're in right now. Kind of like my dump truck spiel, there is a Vector that's fully built, sitting there,
Okay.
ready for us to grab and use.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
no problem.
misunderstood
And
you.
we have, strangely enough, on Wednesday is our spring meeting in the Highway Department, our QWL, our job assignments, and I mean, I could have a Vector crew. I can say that they're going to go out and Vector and do it if I get that piece of equipment.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Administrator?
Yeah, I just wanted, within the department streets and highways budget, their CIPs, this wasn't anticipated expenditure. We've known we've been dealing with a piece of equipment for 2006. And just because, and maybe I missed it, I don't think it's been said, I want council to know we have 2 other Vectors. Those Vectors are operated by the water department. And there's a segregation of how we use those pieces of equipment because of cross-contamination and how they're used. And when Mr. McRena and I sat down with KT, Kevin Turnquist, and AJ Alvin Jensen, and went through the vetting of this decision, we talked about how these wastes are disposed in the Vactor dump, which council recently approved. Also, as an emergency, we looked at what happens if we can't get this thing quick enough. And we have a backup to rent a piece of equipment. And I think to Ms. Banks' question, the fact that we ideally have 3, most cities our size, that's about the number we had. The last city I was with, we had 3 for a city of 24 square miles. And, you know, when I have conversation with other communities, that's about the right number. You usually have 1 or 2 for your sewer, your water and sewer department. So we could rent them as an interim, $4,000 a week, a little bit less for a month. And if council approves this, we could have it as soon as Thursday?
It's built. I mean, we can have it pretty fast.
And just full disclosure, as we were dealing with this 2 days later, we have problems with both of ours in the water and sewer, which are newer pieces of equipment. This equipment, these pumps are rather heavy. I mean, you're sucking out pipes, you got propellers in that, and the impact, and it sounds like one of them, the propellers went. And I'll be real frank, I mean, Kevin and AJ are constantly educating me. This is not my wheelhouse of knowledge, and I apologize. We should have asked the question about the warranty, and we'll get that information to you.
All right. And this piece of equipment is about 17 years old, so I think it's got its useful life out of it.
And that's really heavy duty use. I mean, you're sucking stuff out of sewer systems, stone and debris, and
So Dyson hasn't made one yet.
Mr. Chair?
All right, Councilman Brightwell?
Yeah, out of an abundance of feeling that we need this, so I would like to make a motion that we approve the purchase of the 2022 Vector from Jack Doheny Company of Northfield for the net cost of $434,957,000.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilwoman Banks, for the authorization to purchase a Vector for the Streets and Highway Division. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
But please get us.
Thank you for listening, and I promise it was a real spiel. When I heard that there was another municipality that I couldn't even believe it when I heard it.
Their loss is our gain.
Yes, thank you.
JT, please get us that warranty stuff, though. I just want to see it. Okay, thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is the authorization to award the construction contract to Panchora LLC for playground equipment replacement at 3 parks.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Council, Mayor, our administrative staff. Parks and Recreation is here tonight seeking authorization to award construction to Panchora LLC for playground equipment replacement at 3 of our parks. Our recently completed master plan anticipates the replacement of our 12 playgrounds at our city parks in the next 5 years. So this is the first round of those 3 parks because of the frequency of use and the age of these parks. The 3 sites, Bedford, Freeway Park, and Civic Center, were chosen. We worked closely, very diligently with the purchasing department, Ray Townsell, who did a wonderful job, and we received bids in January. We evaluated those bids based on staffing, durability of equipment, warranty, the use of certified installers, and after scoring them, we held interviews with each of the companies so that we could understand those proposals completely. Along with the highlights that I just gave you, we also look at design and aesthetics,
function, price, of course, and references. Panchora LLC has an excellent reputation in the industry. They do use certified installers, functional and modern design, aesthetically pleasing for sure, and really importantly, they're very flexible in balancing the needs of a wide range of ages. This particular item was reviewed by Fiscal Services. The total expenditure will not exceed $787,500. That is including a 5% contingency. We are anticipating taking it from our fund balance, the Parks and Recreation fund balance that is listed there currently at about $5.4 million. Here with me tonight is Lance Shipman. Lance is from Panchora, who has a presentation introducing the company to you. And also, he will give some of the park designs that they have given us. Please keep in mind it is a representative of concept. Once the bid is awarded to the company, we have the flexibility to move some of the play amenities around based on our need, based on the size of the park and based on the usage of the park and the personality. So we will be able to move some play features around after the bidding, but we will not be going over that total amount that I have already spoken about. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Lance Shipman from Panchora. Thank you.
Thank you all, Mayor, Administration, Council. My name is Lance Shipman. I work with Panchora. We are a recreation solutions provider. So essentially, everything you see in the park or playground system is there we go. Everything that you see in the park or playground systems we get involved with. In this case, we're looking at playgrounds. We are fortunate to be the reps for Michigan and Ohio for Landscape Structures playground equipment, which is actually developed, designed, tested, manufactured by an employee-owned ESOP company in Delano, Minnesota. So a lot of that, and the reason I exemplify that is that leads to the quality and durability of what goes into this equipment. And all the guys and gals that might be drilling holes or making welds, they actually own a piece of this equipment. So they're very invested in what they put out and the quality that's behind it. So like I said, we are a premier privately owned company based out of Brighton, Michigan, handling all of the recreation needs within many communities within both states. We also offer assistance in a wide range of avenues, including assistance with fundraising, community build efforts, different things like that. We offer, our biggest pursuant is to try to partner with communities like yours to help envision, analyze, come up with the appropriate design because it is your community. We wanted to make sure it's the right fit and right solution per each park within your community, not just something we can pull out of a catalog and ask you to pick one. So we are vested in a partnership to get this to the final design that would actually go into the ground. We also have professional certified installation services, not only certified by the industry, but certified specifically by the manufacturer. So they're very adept and understand what's going into each piece of playground equipment. And we also assist with maintenance. Every park gets a maintenance kit that illustrates and designates what maintenance procedures, if any, need to happen on a yearly basis. Again, I mentioned our certified installers. Any size project we've been able to handle, from small to big, including what you see in your parks here. I mentioned real briefly that we do assist with community builds. I actually supervise community builds when those happen. It's just another service we provide and the manufacturer fully supports if projects go down that avenue. We do have, and I'm proud to say, the highest warranty in the industry. And what we do specifically is we identify our warranties by years. For example, our structural components are all warranted for 100 years. The reason we do that is because lifetime can mean anything.
You always have to look for the fine print if you see a warranty that says lifetime warranty. That's why it usually says limited lifetime warranty. For some, when it's broke, it's the end of its lifetime. For others, you just got to figure out what that is. We've decided to go away from that route and tell you specifically by year what it is, so there is no question, there is no debate on what that is. And we do carry the highest warranty in the industry, and we're proud to offer that to you. Some of the other real quick side notes, it's a very green-oriented company. We do recycle most of the material, if not all, including shavings and things from drills and wells and cuts. That all gets recycled, including the water from our concrete products. And we also participate in global relief to help replenish any, we plant trees to help offset any of the carbon footprint that may be created through the manufacturing process. We do offer purchasing contracts if those are available and desired. These are just a few that we participate in. And some communities do and some communities don't, but it is something we are involved with if it comes up. And we also offer grant assistance for those that need. Not necessarily, we don't provide grants, we help seek out and find grants. And we have a regular updated listing of grants that we're aware of that are out there for folks to kind of go after and see if they can help fund projects. We offer factory tours. It's a lot of money that goes into these playgrounds, and typically you're looking at on average, a community every 20, 25 years maybe spends this amount of money on playground equipment. Part of what the manufacturer and what we offer is a factory tour. If there's anybody that wants to go see what goes into this equipment, how it's built, what are the little things we do to help its longevity and quality. My father grew up, or I should say I grew up with my father. He was an engineer, spent some time in foundries and factories, and they did tours, and everybody hated it. They didn't like people coming in, oh, you're wasting our time, we got work to do. Landscape Structures is a way different atmosphere. They want to invite you in, show you what they're doing, why they're doing it. They're proud of it. It's kind of the culture that's behind the equipment that you're looking to get. So we've got a lot of playgrounds in the local community surrounding you, within and surrounding you, that you could go see and sort of see for yourself. Catalpa Oaks, Belle Isle, Detroit Public Zoo, Grosse Pointe Public Schools, Detroit City Parks, City of Novi Parks, Pleasant Ridge, Gainsborough Park, that's a big one there, Michigan State Parks, Rothstein Park, which is one of the overpasses, as well as Victoria Park, which is the other of the second of the three, with Freeway Park being the third. So we do have experience working on those overpasses. So, you know, we're kind of ahead of that learning curve when it comes to Freeway Park. So we were asked to develop designs through an RFP for 3 playground replacements within your community. We were asked to develop themed playgrounds, right, with no real defined theme. So we took an interesting approach to this, and you'll see in the designs that I'm about to present you that we didn't take it what people might consider traditionally a theme. It wasn't animals, or it wasn't trains, trucks, playing, you know, that's a lot of what you see in playgrounds instead of theme. We took an environmental approach to it and creating themed environments as opposed to, you know, whimsical kind of theming. And you'll see that through the 3 designs I'm going to show you tonight. So Freeway Park being the first one. Freeway Park is the one of the 3 parks that has 2 designated areas by age group. There is a 2 to 5 area and a 5 to 12 area. So we're looking at removing everything in those spaces within the perimeters of those play areas and replacing it all with new. You can see the layout here. This is an aerial view. The first aerial view you can see of those 2 spaces. For this concept, this is a sky theme. So you see depictions of clouds, even in hot air balloon in the 2 to 5 structure. There's lots of little detail in these structures that's really hard to see in here. We hope to get in a little closer on a couple of these slides. But there's a lot of things, there's those little airplanes, you know, just different things that have that theme involved with them. This is another view. You can see in this park we have the primary structure. We call that our billows. different swing ideas. So you have the standard swings you see kind of toward the back there. Up closer to you is our oodle swing and our friendship swing, which are inclusive in nature and offer transition off of a wheelchair if need be. That's our whirly-cue spinner and on my right side. I'm not sure if that's how you guys are seeing it too. There's also a wee-saw, 4-person inclusive seesaw that you see there. And one of our newest items just behind that is one of our new spinners. So it's a multi-person spinner that kids can get on there. This is a better view of that billow structure. You can see the cloud-type roofs. There's even a kite up there that adds to the theming. So that's kind of the feel you're getting for this. And we kind of felt maybe this is the right place for this. As was mentioned, you know, maybe it's more appropriate in one of the other parks. And we're certainly open to shifting these things around, kind of a mix and match approach if need be. This is the other back angle. That's one of our spinners there on the left. And then this is the 2 to 5 area. So this is the theming using the hot air balloon. So everything around that structure sort of has that theme. It's age appropriate for 2 to 5. You can even see, maybe you can't see it on this image, but there's actually like a booth to buy, you know, tickets to ride the hot air balloon. So it's really neat, kind of a new approach. Even the layout of these structures is triangular in nature with a lot of stuff going on even in the middle. So it varies away from what we would call traditional post and deck, where every play was really defined. You entered in a spot, you walked up a certain set of stairs to go down a particular slide. These designs that you're going to see today are very open in nature and very like non-traditional in the fact that kids are allowed to approach it from any angle, decide what challenges they want to take, and come into and create their own play environment, as opposed to the traditional style of being told how to play on it. So it's very nondescript in that way. The next park was Civic Center Park. This park is the closest to where we're standing now. Has some unique shapes currently in it, so that was a little bit of a challenge for it, but I think we got a good idea there on how to manage that. And some very unique and new equipment that you're going to see in this, this particular design. So this is our summit structure. It was newly introduced this year. It gives you that alpine feel, you know, sort of up in the mountains type of feel with the trees and the mountain peak and some of the different things going down there to help create that airy feel. We included our zip cruise, which is similar to a zip line, but it's a trolley system, not a cable system. So it actually works both directions, not just from a high to a low side, and it doesn't have pulleys and cables that create their own issue. It also has an inclusive seat on it, so those that can transfer out a wheelchair can use this right alongside their buddies who might be typically able and have that feeling of flight, which they really don't get in any other situation on a regular basis. So they're able to race their friends, even though they may have some disabilities themselves. They can join in the fun right along with everybody else. We included also our Cozy Dome you see in the lower right, which is initially developed for children on the autism spectrum. It gives them an opportunity to have their own space and come out as they're comfortable, but they're also being able to stay engaged and play with kids up and around it as well. Another view of this, on the right side there, you'll see our global motion. This is a really cool rotating climber. So it doesn't spin fast, but it does rotate. There's one of these at Gainsborough Park, which was actually the first one in the state of Michigan. Very well received. It's quite bigger than it may seem in this image. It actually does have a pretty good presence, and it's also transferable into the lower portion for those in a wheelchair, again, to be included and be part of the play. Swings also in here and a few other spinners. This is another view of that new summit climber. Really cool, different approach to play. You know, it gives you, it's almost theme parkish in some ways, because it's creating an environment as opposed to creating, you know, just a place to play. And then the backside view of this. You can see in that internal portion, there's lots of different avenues to get around. Flexible climbers, you know, that's depicting, you know, like a mountain bridge in there, which is like a suspension bridge. And then the last part is Bedford Woods Park. This was the largest area in terms of the sprawling nature of it. We also included the zip cruise and different swings in here. But the structure we used in here, we took into the trees. So we used our treetops structure. So the idea in this structure is the feeling of climbing through the treetops. So the kids have lots of different avenues in there on the vines and on the slides and climbers. In here you'll see we, again, included our double zip crews, the swings that are all in there. With the nature theme, we also have a log crawl tunnel in there, some different nature-inspired aspects. Another angle you can see the log balance beam and the log crawl tunnel. Those are actually made out of fiberglass reinforced concrete. So they have the look and feel of wood, but the durability of concrete. I personally have taken baseball bats to these elements and split an aluminum baseball bat. It's extremely durable, and that's why we use them as opposed to real wood in the play environment for that durability. You can see there's a leaf, little wobble pod in there as well. This is the internal of that treetops. You can see all of the different avenues of play going on in there. So there are directions to go, but there's also choices to be made. So real key on that spot. Again, we have the cozy dome in there, and in the back, there's another spinner. And I apologize if I'm going through this really quick, but I knew there was a lot to go through, and it's been a long night for y'all. So the other exciting feature that I included in here is what we call our Qantas structure. That's the one on the right side, a very organic. It's sort of today's answer to the old geodesic climber that we all grew up on. So it's that same idea of being able to climb over like the geo climbers, but we introduced a whole lot of other play avenues in here. So it can be climbing, it can be socializing, gathering. There's a rail slide you see on the back. So really cool, unique approach to that old favorite item, but really modernizing it and giving it a cool twist. Another angle here. I think I have a couple more slides up close of that structure. You can see this is just a different color scheme. So we have different ways to modify the colors, and all of those color options are available. And that's the back side of that structure as well. So our typical timeline, we're kind of into maybe the third step on here. So from there, we have a submittal sign-off, which is basically, we're going to go through a process with whatever committee or those that be to refine the designs and make sure it's where everything needs to be and where the community wants it to be. We get that sign-off. We are currently, and I'm proud to say, currently at a 5-week lead time for receipt of equipment. A lot of folks are having struggles in getting equipment, and timelines are getting extended. We're very fortunate in that, and that's a lot to do with lean manufacturing and how we do it. It's not a stockpile of materials that gets assembled. It's actually a one-off fabrication from beginning to end of the entire project, much like the auto industry, in terms of how we can get this through. Installation time is 1 to 2 weeks typically. Now, in this case, you've got 3 different projects, so depending on how much of that can overlap on the crews or whatnot, that could be 6 weeks, or we'd like to think that's the maximum, and we would compress it from there, trying to be effective with which crews are where and, and what they're doing. And then we have our completion sign-off. Everybody's happy with it, and then we also assist if needed in any sort of grand opening. We have, we got giant scissors and ribbon and all that fun stuff that everybody likes to do. And I think that's generally the conclusion, and I apologize, it was quick, so I'm definitely here to answer any questions or go back to any slides you would like to see. Councilman Cruz?
Yep. Thank you for your presentation. It's very impressive, I must say. You pretty much every time I was about to write something down to ask you, you answered it right before I said it.
I do my best.
So, and my first question was about ADA and everything, because I saw the wheelchairs and such on there, and I just wanted to make see how that worked. But you explained that. The only other thing I did want to ask you is about benches in the park, and I don't know if that's on you or on us, but I didn't see anywhere for people to sit.
Right. Well, in what we were asked to do within the playground setting did not include benches, but I believe in the RFP there was an explicit statement that none of the existing benches were to be removed, at least on our end. So
There are currently benches in there that I believe are staying, and then there might be a plan to add to it. That would be out of our current scope.
Right, and I can answer that. I'm glad you asked. If you remember when I was talking about Miller and Sims Park and going forward with that project, it's kind of like our flagship parks where we will identify the benches so that we have the same benches and seating throughout all of our parks. And so it just so happens that Landscape Structures is in that mix as well for their benches and seating. But this particular bid does not include benches right now, but we will be addressing that.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. Councilwoman Banks?
I'm sorry, drawing a blank right now. Where is Bedford Woods Park again?
It's right off of 12 Mile and, boy, what's the street right
Webster.
there? I drive to it. What is it?
Webster.
No.
Lathrop and
Bedford.
Webster.
Bedford is 12 Mile and what is it? Is it Lathrop?
Lathrop Street,
Lathrop. Why couldn't I think of that?
and then
So, and as you take
Webster
this-
on the north.
Yeah, and as you take the street down to it, it kind of dead ends and then you turn right. We actually have held some special events over there. It lies right along the shopping center there, you know, where the group came in and did the artistic drawings.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it would help me in the future when we make the slide presentations, if you could just put the address there underneath. I was trying to Google address for Bedford Woods. I can't even find it Googling it, so.
Sure.
Okay. I thought for some reason it was the Bavarick Woods location, but it's,
Yeah, and I think Administrator Zorn put you have maps in front of you, aerial maps of each of the parks?
It's behind Southfield Plaza.
okay.
Burlington.
Thank you.
You're
It
welcome.
was an excellent presentation, and I'm sorry, he did give us these maps, I
That's
forgot
okay.
about them.
That's okay. You got a lot of information in front of you.
Is that it, Councilwoman Banks?
Yes, that's all, thank you.
Councilman Brightwell?
I enjoyed the presentation, and obviously I haven't had kids running around the house in quite a while. So my reference point is old. So Terry, inside your department, what protocol and what procedure did you guys go through to select the selection process, and then you got it to us? What you have groups? You guys, what level of
How
scrutiny?
do we go through making the decision, number one, on what it was that we desired and how you match that up with the vendor or the equipment? I think that's what you're asking.
Well, I just want to know, how did you get to this final design? And
Well,
you agreed
these
on
were,
it.
these were the designs that, each company gave us a design. And so we looked at those designs as a group, as a team, Parks and Recreation and Purchasing, and took a look at the kinds of equipment, play equipment features that each company had. We looked at the personality of the parks. Each park has its own unique personality. Civic Center has day camps here. It has shelter rentals, 2 large shelter rentals. It gets a lot of use here. And when we looked at the features, whether we choose the feature that Lance had showed you, the ability to make it noteworthy and it can make an impact really struck us with Panchora. We want durability. We've got Freeway Park. That's a beautiful park, and it's going to become even more beautiful as we invest in it. But the visibility of that park, lots of things can happen there. We have vandalism that occurs from time to time there. So we want to make sure that what we choose for each park matches the needs, matches the challenges that each park has, because each one does. And really give us the best bet for the company and for our residents. And I really like their ability to, you saw some of the play features, the ability to offer something that's fun for 2 to 5-year-olds as well as the older kids. And not every company can do that well. And we really feel like Panchora hits the mark there. So it's a combination of matching the personality to the equipment, but it's also really doing our homework, and I mentioned Ray Townsell from purchasing, really doing our homework and ferreting all of that out and giving everyone an equal opportunity, and then interviewing everyone. And we really learned a lot from Lance and each of the vendors as we spoke with them.
Right. Okay. So internally within your department, do you have your staff, so you guys make a judgment and then you settle on this? Is that it? I mean,
for the most part, yes. We had our recreation operations manager there. We had our parks operations supervisor there. We had our financial budget analyst there who really looked at the numbers. So each of us had a role. And please remember that they are representative of a team of folks. So our recreation operations manager is talking to our programmers and talking to our supervisors. When we look at maintenance of this equipment and the infrastructure that goes into putting this equipment in, we certainly don't want to have standing water in places, right? So we really look at the infrastructure of each of these areas and do our homework on where these companies are doing some business. So, yeah, a lot of factors.
Right. Well, getting, I guess the subject matter expert was involved in
absolutely
making the selection, and then you brought it to us. I mean, because
there were about 5 of us from Parks and Recreation at the table along with purchasing. So it was a real commitment to make sure that we were matching this up. We don't take this investment lightly. You know, we haven't had new playground equipment in our parks for a very long time. So we really want to take the right steps to move forward.
Yeah, well, I think, for myself, I hadn't had little people around in a while. I haven't had to take a little person to the park, so I'm not familiar with the current, or what's good and what's popular with little people today. So that's what I'm trying to get at. You have your subject matter experts. They looked at this and they feel comfortable with it enough for you to bring it to us.
Absolutely.
To vote on this.
Absolutely, and we still have some options. Yep.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Councilman Banks?
How long does the paint on the play structures hold its color?
That's a very good question, and actually a question that's being asked a lot these days. And really relative to what you guys are experienced with it in terms of the age of the equipment that you have. Currently, we use what is in the industry is called a super durable powder coat, which is an automotive grade powder coating, which is very UV stable. So 20 years ago, you used to see reds turn pink and you saw purples turn brown. That had to do with UV instability. Nowadays, the powder coating techniques that are used are very stable, so we don't have that concern anymore. We don't necessarily have to shy away from particular colors anymore for that reason. Our reds don't turn pink, you know, like they used to. And we even have seen in the past, like I said, purples turn brown, or even blues kind of turn gray with equipment that's, you know, say 20 plus years, and it depends on where it came from too. But this is all very durable, all been UV tested, and there may be colors that are not in our palette, and that's probably the reason, is because maybe those particular colors aren't quite where we need them to be stability-wise. So, but we do have a really wide-ranging palette to pick from.
So if you could estimate like years, I mean, are you talking 5 years, 3 years, 10 years?
We have playgrounds in place that are 15 plus years old that still look like new.
Okay,
in terms of the finishes and fit.
Thank you. And then, Terry, where does one park if they want to go to the freeway deck park to enjoy the playground equipment?
Well, I'm
glad you asked that, actually. So it's the parking lot right off of Lincoln. It's right next to the school there. Currently, though, and I've been talking to Public Works, currently when you pull in that parking lot, there is no cutout so that a wheelchair has access to the sidewalk there. So we're having some conversations about addressing some issues there at Freeway Park, about getting into that play area without any challenge. We also have some issues there with some standing water that we're looking at. The topography there does not lend itself to great drainage. And so really when you first come into the park, you're at the high point, it kind of slopes down and it goes right back up. And I'll tell you, for a good 2.5, 3 months, it's like a little ice skating rink on the in-between. So we really need to take a look at replacing that sidewalk through there. And those are some of the things that seem to be cosmetic, but really it's infrastructure. And so we're having some conversations about that. You may hear from me in the future coming back to council and asking your permission to increase that vendor account so that we can address those issues at Freeway Park.
Well, shouldn't we address those issues first before we install any equipment?
Well, the equipment is away from all of the sidewalk area.
Yeah, but if you can't get to it.
Well, you can get to it. You can't get to it easily. So I don't know how else to answer that except for out of all 12 of our parks, Freeway Park screamed for a replacement. So if we do that in tandem with addressing that expenditure, we certainly can do that. It just depends. I can't give you a schedule of when we can make those improvements. But we are looking at changing that equipment out, and as a result and along with, whenever you make improvements to a park, there's plenty that we could do at each and every one of our parks. We want to take the step to invest in the equipment, and then we'll take a look at the hardscape there.
Well, personally, I'd like to see both of it done at the same time. I mean, to me, it just doesn't even make sense if you're going to put this beautiful equipment there, but if someone from the outside wants to come to that park, there's no easy way to get there.
We certainly can do a cut into the sidewalk, but as far as the hardscape, I don't know, Councilman Banks, if you're talking $100,000 or $150,000 for the hardscape repair. So I'd feel more comfortable if I came back to you and gave you an estimate on what that would be, rather than to say, I'm going to go ahead and do that.
So the only way to get to this park is to walk there.
No, Ms. Banks, you can also go on Fairfax. There's
Thank you.
a cul-de-sac at the south end. That's many times when I go there, that's where I park because I come from the south.
And you can park on Fairfax there? I didn't think you could.
There's a cul-de-sac, yeah.
If you're looking at the map, on the bottom of the map, Fairfax has the cul-de-sac where it says Fairfax and 696.
Okay, I was looking at the top.
But there is a parking lot on the top where you see the intersection of Lincoln and Fairfax. Well, Fairfax has been, is no longer, but there is a small parking lot entrance right off of Lincoln, just east of the freeway.
Okay. Well, again, I'd like to see this done together so that everyone can utilize this park. This park is just not for just the subdivision area. I mean, I think most of our other parks, anyone can go to, anyone can park there, anyone can have a picnic there. This is the only one that it's a little more challenging to get to find, to park, etc. I mean, the proposal is beautiful, but I'm trying to think if I were to take my grandchildren there, where would I park? How would I get them there? And I know once we got there, they would love it, but I'm sort of familiar with that area, and it's just not an easy way in. And I think that's been a complaint of that park for many years, in addition to the water in that park.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to just comment. We're looking tonight at playscape equipments or other elements of the park. And when I'm hearing staff indicate that we'll be coming back, whether it's the flat work, planting materials, benches, we're requesting to move these items forward. I do want to comment on Freeway Park. In the bipartisan legislation on infrastructure, there is money for roads in that have cut whole neighborhoods in place. Many of us are aware that I believe for the second, possibly the third time, the bridge park over 696 in Oak Park is being rebuilt because of the water drainage issue. So as we go through and move forward, I would like to see the play equipment move forward. Last week, Ms. Fields and I had a conversation about the flat work. I believe we need to do something there. Unfortunately, this aerial photo does not show you that when this park was originally built, it is actually a very attractive design. An awful lot of flat work. And maybe some of that flat work needs to be rethought as to what other play activities may happen. But within the park, the playground area is a subset area. And if we could move that forward, and we feel confident, be it stormwater, and I'll just point out the city's track record with stormwater in parks. Think Inglenook Park, you received a nice grant for that. Valley Rouge, another grant. We have other parks that have parking challenges. I'm thinking Lasser Woods, 9 Mile and Evergreen, the parking isn't ideal. Stratford Woods has no parks, and I'm quickly thinking off of the top. So we always room for improvement. And Terry hasn't said it, and I said it to her earlier. I got to remind council where you were. Only 3 years ago, you had a Parks and Rec Department deficit spending. You've now have done some restructuring. And in my 13 years with the city, I saw a Parks and Rec Department manage to rebuild its fund balance, structure and put in better cost controls, and far more better fiscal management the last 5-6 years than what I saw in my first 7 years here. And, this is a department that years ago took on a performing arts center. You had an awful lot of things causing a financial drain, and so now you're starting to bring it back. In the last 4 years, you put $4 million into Beechwood Center and a rec center. You redid the patio, you utilized grants, whether the grants were at Inglenook or whether or not the grant at Pebble Creek, you leveraged dollars from Centropolis. I'd like to see what we could do. I firmly believe we're in just a very unique period of opportunity on this federal infrastructure. And this is the classic definition of a neighborhood that got cut in half when 696 went through. And I think that's your next opportunity, whether it's your flat work improvement, your plant specimens. The plant specimens were all put in the first park. Some of them, when we walked it last fall, clearly need to be replaced. You got some security issues. I think I'd like to see us move forward on this one element and then take a step back and look at what a larger package will look like. So, thank you.
Ms. Banks, did you have any other questions?
No, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
First of all, to follow up on something Ms. Banks asked, I want to do a commercial for BASF. As in their research lab in Southfield, Michigan, they have developed the paints that don't fade because they match plastic and metal so that the colors stay the same. So that's something that happens right in our city. But I wanted to ask, in your illustrations, I know that, especially from my years as a school administrator, the fall zone. It looks like sand, but what is the material that, I assume that's part of the installation?
Yes, the material that we're currently using is predominantly engineered wood fiber, or some would just say mulch, but it's specifically processed for use in playgrounds.
Okay.
That's what we're utilizing in here. It is
accepted as an ADA accessible surfacing
With a depth,
with a depth of about 12 inches.
yeah,
Yep. So we'll have that impact attenuation that's required by
yeah,
code.
for shock absorbent, right? You know, there's a favored feature, and I'm just going to ask if it's still going to stay there. In the Civic Center Park, there's a pathway around the play structure. And one of the cool things about it are the various animal footprints. Are we, I always thought, especially for kids, to identify, you know, there's raccoon, there's deer, I think there's bird and duck footprints. Are we keeping that, or is that part of the redesign?
Yeah, in this current project, we are working within the envelopes of the current existing play areas, so we are not removing any sidewalks.
Wonderful.
So your prints will still be.
Yeah, I thought it was a great feature, especially for kids.
We've used them in a lot of parks, and even Mount Elliott, we even put some down by the river, some, you know, duck prints and coyote prints and different things for native species.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. I had a couple questions, and these are probably more for Ms. Fields. And as Councilwoman Banks alluded to with a lot of the freeway park questions, I happen to utilize that park weekly with my children. It happens to be in my neighborhood. We walk through it. The play equipment I used in elementary school, so I definitely know that it needs to be replaced. I remember when they built it. But besides for the play equipment, I know we talked about some of the flat work, because, you know, I think it is something that is very important, because there's so many cracks. As you mentioned, you know, in the winter, it's an ice skating rink. I can attest to that as well. But there's so many cracks. Anybody walking through with a wheelchair, with a stroller, that is the #1 complaint I receive from that park, is that it's very, if you use it as a passage from one side of the freeway to the other, there's, besides for the water over the sidewalk, there are a lot of cracks and potholes in the sidewalk, and hopefully we can get that addressed sometime this year as well, because there's no point, as Ms. Banks, as Councilwoman Banks mentioned, you know, if we have this great ADA accessible structure, but it's difficult to get there, it serves no purpose. But I do know that, and as well as you know, and the city administrator, I probably bug you guys monthly on Freeway Park and some of the security issues.
You have key messaging. I wouldn't call it bugging.
There's you know, I do get a lot of compliments that the lights actually work now.
Yeah.
So that was nice. But I do think that this is a definite step in the right direction, being that, as I mentioned, I used to use the play equipment that's currently there in elementary school. So I'm very excited, as are the people in the neighborhood, when I already told them that this was coming tonight.
Great.
So I'm very excited.
We're excited too.
So, any other questions or comments on this? No, Councilman Banks?
Are there like low ranging lights in the park?
No.
For when it gets dark?
There's headlights, or there's regular street lights that have recently been converted to LEDs.
And is that in all of our parks?
Not in all of our parks, no. But we made an investment into Freeway Park. We were spending on the average, I'd say, of about $3,500 to $4,000 every year in replacement. Every time we replaced one, someone took a rock and took it out, or something would happen. We went from looking at the ballast, looking at the fuses, trying to, troubleshoot and problem solve, and we took a look probably a couple years ago, and took a look at replacing it with LED lighting, and that's really made the difference.
Thank you.
right, so if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I would like to move that council adopts the resolution awarding construction contract for the playground equipment replacement at Beechwoods, Freeway Park, and Civic Center Park to Panchora LLC for their acceptable bid of $750,000 plus contingency of 5% and allow funding of this project by use of Parks and Recreation Fund balance.
Support.
Excuse me, through the chair. I
Yes.
think you said Beechwood, and it's Bedford.
Okay, I'm sorry,
And I just wanted to, yep.
Bedford Woods.
Right.
Support.
Okay. It has been moved by Councilwoman Banks, supported by Councilman Brightwell, for the authorization to award construction contract to Panchora LLC for playground equipment replacement at 3 parks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very
much.
much.
Thank you so much.
All right, now we're at the council portion of the meeting, and we'll start with Councilwoman Banks.
Thank you. The only thing I have this evening is I would like to say Happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. I believe it's this Thursday. We have a lot of great restaurants in Southfield that serve corned beef, and maybe on Thursday you can frequent one of the great restaurants that we have. Treat yourself to a nice corned beef sandwich on St. Patty's Day. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
Yes, I just have one item, which is a veteran-related item. Veterans now can get their student loan forgiven. And this is it's be based on your time in service, and some of the months can get money knocked off of your student loan. It is taken care of by the Department of Education, and the veteran would have to fill out a form. It's called Student Aid. That's the form, .gov/PSLF. That form is where the veteran can get the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Again, it's Student Aid, that STUDENTAID.gov, PSLF. So if you have additional questions, feel free to call me here at City Hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Cruz?
I have nothing this evening, sir.
All right. And I just want to, in honor of Women's History Month, just give a shout out to my mom. Without her, I would not be here. And also, if you have any complaints about me, you can address them to her as well. So, thank you very much. Mr. Mayor?
Now you're going to make my mom mad at me.
I think we all appreciate our mothers. Just 2 quick things. One, I spoke to Council President Taylor about this. I would like the council to consider going back to our regular seats by the first meeting in April. So I ask that you consider that. And certainly anybody who wants to wear a mask certainly may do so. It's a matter of choice, although we no longer require it in City Hall. And secondly, I asked that the item G be removed or withdrawn this evening, the restoration of the Harry Bertoia sculpture, because I wanted to change the funding source for that proposed repair. In order to move forward with this piece that has languished for 5 years since it was discovered in 2017, we really need to get it repaired. And in working with the Bertoia Foundation, we have someone who can do the work. Given the size of the sculpture, something that's really a very reasonable repair cost. So I'd like to bring that forward for the 21st.
Okay,
That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
thank you. All right, anything from administration?
I have no items this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Attorney?
Good evening. I have no items either. Thank you.
All right, City Clerk?
Good evening. I have no items tonight.
All right, Mr. Treasurer?
Good evening. I was requested by administration to review with the council as well about the our exposure to our investments in our pension system to Russia. And so in an effort to give everyone peace of mind, we have very, very minimal exposure, practically zero. It's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent. But for the most part, we are not making any new purchases into Russia investments or anything of that nature. And the markets have pretty much closed up that we have been invested into. And so our exposure was less than about $80,000 out of a $200 million pension system. So just to clarify that for everyone.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Planner?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
City Assessor or City Engineer? We have nothing to schedule. Anything else to be brought before the council this evening? All right, this meeting is adjourned.